Good evening and welcome to the June 3rd, 2020 Ashland Select Board meeting. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are utilizing the Zoom conferencing platform to conduct our meeting, and all board and committee members are participating remotely. The goal is to maintain the spirit of the open meeting law, providing access and transparency to all proceedings. When appropriate, efforts will be made to allow for public participation through the Zoom platform. This meeting is also being broadcast live and is being taped by the good folks at WACA-TV. Tonight, it is not being streamed on Facebook. Your patience with any technical difficulties is appreciated as we conduct our meeting in this new way. The Ashland Select Board meeting is called to order. May I have a roll call attendance from board members? Greaves?
Aye.
Kinsman?
Aye.
Vignani?
Aye.
Shear?
Aye.
And Mitchell? Aye. So we have at this time, our first scheduled hearing is at 6:15. It's an Eversource hearing. Jen and or Susan, can you admit people into the waiting room? We've got two folks that are in the queue. So my suggestion at this point is that we conduct some old new business prior to the 6:15 hearing. So I would ask that we first look at the acceptance of minutes, both of our May 20th regular session minutes and the tri-board meeting minutes from May 18th. Is there any discussion and or amendments to those minutes?
That's fine.
They look
Hearing
good.
none.
Oh, yeah, very good.
Hearing none, can I have a motion?
Sure, I move that we approve the minutes from our May 20th Select Board meeting and the May 14th Tri-Board meeting as presented.
Okay,
second.
So just to clarify, it's the May 18th.
Oh, I apologize. May 18th Tri-Board meeting.
All right, so I've got a motion by Yolanda, a second by Joe. Roll call vote. Greaves?
Aye.
Kinsman?
Aye.
Vignani?
Aye.
Shear?
Aye.
And Mitchell, aye. Next old new business item, accept donation from the 3R program. This is a $5,000 gift from the Friends of the Ashland Council on Aging. Very generous, and I would ask for a motion to accept this generous gift.
I move that we accept the generous gift of $5,000 from the Friends of the Council on Aging for the 3R program with our thanks.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. All those in favor? Greaves?
Aye.
Kinsman?
Aye.
Vignani?
Aye.
Shear?
Aye.
And Mitchell, aye. And again, we thank the Friends of the Council on Aging for their generosity for this very successful program. Next item we can conduct is accept the town manager's appointment of Carol Harvey as temporary food pantry coordinator. Michael, any comments on this?
No,
No? Okay.
pretty self-explanatory.
Why
Okay.
temporary?
Jen, you could probably best
Sure.
answer that.
With Mary, who was our previous coordinator, resigning and sort of how we're going to approach this moving forward, we wanted to have an opportunity to really look at that position and refine the position moving forward for the long run. So we're sort of planning that we may need somebody who can manage appointments. We may do sort of more curbside, and so it's just a different position than it previously was, but sort of where we are to make sure that we can move through phase 1 and 2, we really did need to fill it. So Carol has actually served as a volunteer for us. She is also employed, and so she's only able to offer us, I think, about 10 hours a week, but she's able to get on the ground running very quickly while we try to refine this position. And so she was, this was a really good match, I think, while we try to figure out how we want to move forward in the long run.
Thank you.
Is this a volunteer position or a paid position?
This is a paid position. It's a temporary paid position
Okay, thank you.
through the summer while we figure out how we want to refine that job description.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Any other questions or comments? If not, then I would ask for a motion to accept the town manager's appointment.
I move that we accept the town manager's appointment of Carol Harvey as the temporary food pantry coordinator.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, Greaves,
Aye.
Kinsman,
Aye.
Vignani,
Aye.
Shear,
Aye.
and Mitchell, aye, and that carries 5-0. We still have time. I think we can knock off the approval of the governor's changes to our meals tax home rule petition. Michael, do you want to speak to this subject?
Yes, so the governor, when this hit his desk, his office had some concerns about some of the technical language, and mainly who had the authority to present the report to the town, and it was changed from town manager to the treasurer. And then also ensuring that it was consistent throughout with that it was going to be a separate fund. So that is it.
Okay, any questions or comments on this modification that we need to approve? Hearing none, I will accept the motion to approve the changes and submit it back to the state.
So moved.
Second.
A motion
I'm
and a
sorry.
second. Okay, we got a motion by Yolanda, a second by Joe. All those in favor, Greaves,
Aye.
Kinsman,
Aye.
Vignani,
Aye.
Shear,
Aye.
and Mitchell, aye. That carries 5-0. I believe we still have some time to go over, let's say, the annual town meeting update. Michael, do you want to discuss that, please?
Sure, yes. So per the moderator's order, town meeting has been recessed and moved to June 30th, 2020. That's 2 weeks further from the initial date of June 16th. The reason the moderator made that decision, and he's been pretty clear, so I feel comfortable saying it, is that with COVID-19, he felt the later we could push it out, the better. But we wanted to keep it within this fiscal year. So that is the reason why he decided to move it. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've also received further guidance from the Massachusetts Moderators Association about how to ensure the democratic process is upheld and the integrity of that process is upheld, utilizing a number of different techniques so people feel comfortable to go to town meeting. So we have made a few changes and have added a few protocols, which I think we will be discussing later, and you'll see more announcements about how town meeting will run and will work in the next couple of weeks. And actually, as part of that, we really needed to get the Board of Health buy-in on this and sign off. So we actually went to the Board of Health last night, ran through our plan with them, and they agreed that it was sound and safe, and they gave it their blessing.
Okay, any questions or comments on the moderator's change of date for town meeting?
I had a question. So Michael, when you say the protocol and describing it later, when is later?
Well, I think we'll probably be doing some video announcements within the next couple of days. That's correct, right, Yolanda? I believe we're gonna be taping like some around the clock segments.
Yeah, on Friday, we're going to tape on around the clock and get that information out once we have a little more detail. Because I think there's still some stuff being worked on, right, Michael and Jen, in regards to seating and be able to do the contact tracing and things like that.
Yes, there are, and I could briefly cover it.
That'd be good if we have time. I'd like to hear it. Yeah.
We have some time to.
Okay. So what we're planning on doing is actually the whole intent of this is try to make sure that people still have the opportunity to voice and be heard on the warrant articles, but at the same time stay distant. So we will actually be breaking the lineup as you come in. We'll be separating it alphabetically. Your name starts with A through K. You'll be going to one section. Starts from L to Z. You'll be going to another. There will be a self-assessment and a true check. Registered voters only will be allowed in. It will be in the gym as opposed to the auditorium. You'll be required to wear a mask. And so once you go in, we'll have 3 blocks of seating. There will be 2 aisles like there usually is set up in the auditorium. But this time we're only going to have a microphone at one aisle in one location. So if people would like to speak on an article, once it's motioned and seconded, they will have the ability to line up, and we'll have pre-marked 6 feet distances from the microphone. And what they will do is they will come speak, ask their question. At the end, they will wipe that microphone off. And instead of walking back around the same aisle, they'll actually go around and go through the other aisle.
Wow.
To get
I have a quick question, Mike. Was there ever a discussion about having it outside on a Saturday, seeing that there are no youth events at all or sporting events at all, that we may be able to generate more interest of the townspeople coming to a Saturday morning or a Saturday afternoon town meeting outside, maybe like at the football stadium, either at the middle school or at the high school?
There were some thoughts about that. It's just we were pushing it so late until the end of the fiscal year. We started thinking, what if we needed to have a couple of rain dates? Would that actually straddle the fiscal year, which would cause some more problems? So that was the thought process.
Okay. I was just thinking if you had it outside, maybe the inside aspect of it wouldn't have to make that change closer to the end of the fiscal year.
Right.
That's all. Okay.
Good. Any other questions, concerns about town meeting at this point, June the 30th?
Will there be a maximum capacity of the gym as far as how many people will be able to safely socially distant in the gym?
So we have calculated 125
Okay.
to go there. We will also be set up for overflow in the cafeteria as well, with audio visual connections, so people can watch and see what's happening, and if they need to go and participate, they'll have the ability to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on, we still have a couple of minutes, and I would like to suggest that we maybe start discussing the outdoor dining and the reopening guidelines. I don't see the rep from Eversource on the call at this point in time. So if it comes to 6:15 and she is not here, we'll open the hearing, and then we will suspend the hearing until a future date at this point. So we still have a couple minutes, but Jen, if you want to start that discussion, or Michael, about regarding the outdoor dining and the reopening guidelines. We're not going to finish it certainly, but we'll have to pick it up later on.
I'll defer to Jen on this. She's been working on it.
Okay, so in anticipation for phase 2, Beth Reynolds, our economic development director, has been working with Peter in planning, Emma, our assistant planner, as well as Mike Crisafulli and Mark Oram in the Board of Health, to sort of start to think about what we could do to help our restaurants in particular move to phase 2, which we had anticipated would allow for outdoor dining. That we also were aware that there was legislation moving through the process that could potentially allow us to expand their liquor license to allow them to serve at their outdoor dining areas. So I do apologize for the late submittal of the process this afternoon. We received some guidance from town council yesterday afternoon, and then again this morning, that sort of clarified the process. I think what we'd love to be able to do is talk through our proposed process for both the outdoor dining, and then also potentially how we could approach businesses who request an expansion of their liquor license. So the document that I sent you really lays out the overview and then the application process. In order to allow for outdoor dining, we were really thinking, you have to think about the safety precautions. So in working with fire and police, they would be required to have some physical barriers that would separate the seating requirements. They would still need to comply with ADA requirements so that if people need to be able to get down a sidewalk or be able to access all the businesses that are in any shared spaces, as well as access the outdoor dining area. I think some restaurants have been really creative.
Ben, I'm going to need to stop. Sure. We'll come back to this.
Okay.
We need to open up a public hearing, and this is the legal notice is hereby given that the Select Board will conduct a hearing for the purpose of NSTAR Electric Company, DBA Eversource Energy, and Verizon New England, Inc. to obtain a grant of location to install approximately 1,650 plus or minus feet of conduit to install manholes 3958, 3959, 3960, and 3961. The purpose of the installation is to provide electric service to Robert Hill Way Senior Housing Community. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020, using Zoom. Meeting information will be posted on the agenda, which can be found on the town website, www.ashlandmass.com. The hearing will take place at 6:15 p.m. Persons wishing to be heard on this matter are invited to attend the public hearing by logging into the Zoom meeting. Interested parties who are unable to attend the hearing may submit written comments to the Select Board's office, Town Hall, 101 Main Street, Ashland, Mass. 01721, or by emailing Susan Roby at sroby@ashlandmass.com, and that's signed Steve Mitchell on behalf of the Select Board. Now, I do not see the Eversource rep on in the meeting, so I am at this point going to ask that we suspend this hearing and schedule it for our next hearing, unless this new waiting room participant.
What is that? Carol Fertig? I don't know.
So,
someone who lives on Independence Lane.
okay, so is the representative from Eversource on the call?
Yes, this is Christine Crosby.
Christine, okay, very good. All right, so let's, we can conduct our hearing. So speaking in favor, I open up the floor to Christine to speak to your application.
Okay. We are submitting a petition for Oak Street, approximately at the southerly side at Independence Lane, a distance of about 45 feet of conduit. That would be crossing Oak Street. And then it would be continuing on down to Independence Lane for approximately 1,650 feet. And then along with that, on Independence Lane, where we plan on installing 4 manholes.
Oh.
Is that it?
That's it. That's the proposed work. That's what's on.
Okay. All right.
The
Were you saying something else, Christine?
Yeah. The purpose of the construction is to provide electric service to the new senior community on Robert Hill Way.
Okay. So let me know when either you're going to continue or you're finished.
I'm finished.
Okay. At this point, I would ask if there's anyone else speaking in favor of this before we open up the floor for anyone speaking against or opposed to this project.
Steve, before we open it up to people opposed, or can we ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
Christine, this is Yolanda Greaves, a member of the Select Board. So are these new manholes that you're having to put in Independence? There's no manholes currently there?
No, there isn't.
But don't they already have undergrounded utilities in that neighborhood?
Yes, but those utilities they go through transformers, pad mount transformers.
Under the ground.
Well, the conduit is under the ground, and then it goes into transformers that are like off the public way, like 2 feet in onto private property. And when the developer was built, Eversource got an easement for the conduits and those transformers. So they have like a different underground system. This one's separate.
And this couldn't be done with those other conduits?
No, it could not. It wasn't adequate. It wasn't enough to be able to. There wasn't enough voltage. They needed their own designated system.
Right, but the conduit that you're putting couldn't fit into the system that's already there. I understand you need extra voltage. That I get that you need more power, but it can't go into the conduit and the
No, those conduits that are there are only there. They can only handle the cable that's already there.
Okay. And what's the time frame for the construction, and what would the impact be to the neighborhood?
The time frame they're talking about roughly 70 days. That's with just a regular crew. But they were hoping that maybe at some point during the construction they could double up on the crew to shorten the time frame for the construction. And as far as impact in the neighborhood on like traffic or that would be taken care of. When they go to apply for the street opening permits, they will get in touch with DPW then to find out what it is that what their specifications are.
Okay. And the plan would be, I mean, I understand you have another step, but then the plan would be that whatever whatever happens to the roads, they'd be brought back to where they are now.
Yes, the roads would be repaved. Yep.
Okay.
Steve, Mr. Chair, I do have a question for Christine.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Christine, Joe Mignani, a member of the Select Board as well. I'd like to piggyback on what Yolanda had just asked you. With respect to the road being repaved, is it going to be completely repaved, or is it just going to be patched to the area that's being dug? There's a big difference between the two. And where is the road going to be dug? Is it going to be in the middle of the road, side of the road, to at least keep the traffic from being, held up a little bit?
This construction is going to take place. I just want to look at the plan that was submitted with the petition.
I'm looking at it, and that's why I'm asking, because I'm having a hard time distinguishing. I see several.
It looks like it's pretty much going down the center of the road.
Okay. So that thick red line is the line itself. Is that's the area itself? Okay.
Yep, that's the conduit, and then
I see.
those little square rectangular boxes, those would be where the manholes are. And then it stops where Robert Hill Way begins, and then once it goes into Robert Hill Way, that's all private in there. So we have to get an easement from that. I already did. I already got the easement for all the work that has to be done within Robert Hill Way.
Okay. All right. And this is the first step for the town, and you'll go through the other steps with the planning board and things of that nature as well. With Dougie Small.
I believe that this probably already went through the planning board for it to even get to this point. But once we get approval, this would go out to construction, and then our people would go and file for all the necessary permits that need to be. This meeting tonight would be for the grant of location. But then once it's released to construction, our construction folks will go out and apply for all the necessary permits that would be needed. And if there's any kind of special specifications or anything in there that, that the town wants, that would be spelled out in street opening permits.
Okay. Have there been any test borings done? There's a lot of ledge and rock up there. If you take a look at some of the neighbors' backyards, you'll see stone, hills of stone. Curious if you folks run into ledge, will you have to blast, or rock splitting equipment would need to be done? And how would you go about that if in fact you do come across ledge in some way?
That I don't know the answer to. I would imagine that maybe they've already maybe researched that out, but I'm not sure, but I can find that out.
It would be helpful, because I'm sure the residents would want to know, what would happen if you do come across that. And, either some sort of blasting or rocks splitting will have to be done.
I think if anything, maybe they might bore through it. I'm not really quite sure,
Okay.
I can't say for sure. But I will find that out. So your concern about that is, what if they run into a situation where there's ledge?
Correct.
Okay.
Would they go through it, or would they have to blast? Then if they have to blast, then we would have to do all the necessary notices for the residents that live up in that area as well.
Oh, yeah, they would definitely do that. I mean, they would definitely notify neighbors, if that were going to be the case. But let me find out for sure if that is going to be the case.
Thank you, Christine. I'm good.
So Michael,
Yep.
I think you've got a comment or.
I just asked a question, Steve.
Michael, I think Michael's got something.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Then I'll get to you, Rob, all right?
No, I wanted to answer a little bit of Joe's question.
Okay.
So, blasting is not allowed within a certain radius on that of the actual Robert Hill Way property, because there is a high pressure gas line, the Tennessee gas transmission line. So I would anticipate any rock that was encountered or any ledge would need to be mechanically removed. And I can talk to Doug about wiring that for the road opening permit. If that's what the board would like.
Michael, you're fading in and out. I hardly have a hard time getting.
Yeah, sorry. Did everybody? Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So sorry, I'm actually losing my voice a little bit, and thousands cheered. So because there is a high pressure gas line that is located near the Robert Hill Way development and actually goes through that neighborhood, there is a restriction on blasting within a certain radius. So within that radius, I think any ledge that would be encountered would need to be removed mechanically and not, through blasting. And then the last thing I said is, if the board would like, I can see if we can require any rock removal be done mechanically as part of the road opening permit. Can see about that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Michael. Rob, you had a question?
Yeah, just Joe's question. So how deep does this conduit need to be buried? I was assuming it was just under the road surface, but it sounds like it needs to go pretty deep.
It's about 3 feet deep.
Oh, okay.
Where it's a primary line, so we go 3 feet, 36 inches with
okay.
that.
That's kind of what I thought. All right. And the other thing is, it's been a while since I was on Independence Lane, but I recall it's a horseshoe, right? Pretty much. And it looks to me like you're going in kind of the long way around. Is that right? Or is there a shorter way to get to the entrance from Oak Street than what seems to be pictured here? We have 1,650 feet of conduit.
I don't know if there is, see, we have to have a power source to come from. So maybe the closest power source that we could come from was that pole on Oak Street.
Oh.
So that's
well,
probably why they have.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe it makes more sense to just go a short distance further on Oak Street and come in on the short side. I'm trying to remember the layout.
The short side is, Rob, the short side is not on Oak Street. The short side is on Oregon.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's okay. Oh, well.
And that's not shorter. It's not shorter.
Okay.
Because it comes off of Oregon, does the big U, and then comes back. They have to go
I
through
see.
like property and stuff.
Okay.
This is the most direct route.
All right. That's that was my question.
Good. Okay.
I have a quick question as well. Just looking at this, 1,650 feet of conduit is quite a bit of line, and it's going through the middle of Independence. So I worry about the residents that live there and the impact for 70 days. You know, question of how you guys do this. Do you do it sections, or I'm just trying to think of ways that we can minimize the impact on the residents?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that that's the way they do it. They do it in sections. If need be, they would have a police details out there. You know, they're pretty organized with the way they perform the construction.
Okay, I just know that the road is not that wide, so I just worry about the impact to the residents on that road.
I'm sorry, did you say 70 days? I thought it was 7.
No, 70.
No.
70 days? What? Why does it take so long to put in a simple trench? And wow.
Well,
guess
they
it
have to
gets
install
complicated.
They have to install manholes also, and then after the manholes are installed and the conduit is installed, they've got to pull the cable, the primary cable, through that. That's, you know, and then once all that happens, then they have to energize. You know, then that's when they can energize. So I don't know if that I asked construction how long roughly it would take, and that's what they said. They were hoping that if they could double up on crews, it could be done in a quicker period of time. But you know, you've got situations sometimes when there's weather. You know, I don't know if they fit the fact that there may be weather conditions that could cause that, you know, time frame.
I have one more question, and it might be more for Michael than Christine, but this is the first project that I've seen with line like this. I'm the newest member to the select board. Is this usually the most efficient way to get power to a new development? I'm just curious if there's other ways that Eversource might be able to go about doing this.
Well, there's always the typical overhead poles that you
Okay.
have. Most of the newer developments were actually completed with underground. You know, as a requirement of those development approvals, they were done with underground electrical systems. So, I mean, there's an aesthetic element to
Yes,
it.
that's for the most part. These new developments all have to be done underground, just for, you know, more efficient and aesthetics, you know, reasons.
Okay, any other comments or questions from board members at this point?
So I just have one more. I just want to I'd like a clarification on just one thing. I appreciate Christine's answers. So when the work is completed, the roadway, which is going to be a little close to, say, 1,700 feet of road work, will be repaved and not just patched. So it'll be a fresh surface from the beginning of Oak Street right up to Robert Hill Way. Is that correct?
I'm not positive about that. I'm guessing that it will be, but I will definitely double check on that and make sure that to see that they're going to pave curb to curb. Is that what you're looking for? That's
Yes.
what I will ask.
Yes.
That. I
would put that as a stipulation for allowing.
Put
Thank
that
you.
as a condition.
Exactly what I
Approval.
was-
That's a
Yeah.
condition that you want to place upon the approval. You know, just let me know that.
Okay.
All right, any other board member comments before I open it up to anyone that's speaking against or opposed to this? And I would ask board members to think about conditions that we would want to apply if we move forward with an approval on this. And certainly number one is Joe's suggestion for a complete repave curb to curb throughout the construction zone. Okay, so I see one hand raised. I will unmute, and looks like Mr. Crow has his hand up.
Yes. there was a reference to this having gone through the planning board, and I just want to clarify that I do not believe this sort of permit requires any planning board oversight. There's been nothing related to this project that I'm aware of that has gone to the planning board. So no, there has been no planning board review of this. And I believe that the overall project is a 40B project, so that would go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, although the planning board would weigh in with an advisory opinion. And that is not, that happened a long time ago, and I don't know if that's still going under that permit or if there's going to be a revised review or not. But the planning board has not looked at this in a long time.
I may have misspoken on that. Well,
No, I just want to make sure that nobody thinks that the planning board has looked at this or is going to look at this, because this sort of thing does not go to the planning board. So
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next hand up is Brian Syed.
Hi, it's Wendy Syed and Brian Syed, 115 Independence Lane. So a couple of questions, because this is the first that we're learning about this. First of all, we can't see the plans that you guys have, so we don't know the placement or the manholes and the route that you're discussing. So I'm wondering, first of all, if you could clarify that, as well as the impact for the residents. Is there going to be time where we're losing electricity or other ways that it may be impacting us?
Christine,
Yep.
it's your question.
Well, the plans are with the town. I don't know if they got a chance to, obviously, because of what's going on, they probably didn't have, no one's got the chance to the town to review the plans. Unless they can be emailed to the residents, I don't know. I don't know if when the notifications of the butters went out. Hello? Hello?
You're still on.
Can you hear me?
We're just sharing the documents on the screen, so you're good.
Oh, okay. And as far as outages go, I asked that question and they said that there might be possibly an outage, but that would be during the time when they're going to energize the new development, and it would be a permitted outage, so everybody would be notified of that. But they're not even sure if there would be an outage at all. But if there is, it would be a permitted outage, and it would be minimal, and it would just be during the period of time where they have to energize the new electric system.
Okay, Wendy, anything else?
I think so. I can see the plans scrolling through, but it's hard to see from the screen. Are the manholes in front of specific house numbers that you can identify to us, or?
I can do that, Steve, if you'd like.
Sure.
So starting from the development, it looks like there's a manhole in front of 57 Independence Lane. It looks like there is one at 27 Independence Lane. One in front of 7 Independence Lane.
27, yeah.
27, 7. But Christine, you said 4, right? 4 manholes?
Yeah. Yes, I'm just going to go. I'm going to start on the Oak Street end.
There's only 3 on the plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's interesting. There's Oak Street, nothing there.
Okay, hold on.
Great.
Yeah, okay, can I just say, if you start on page 1 of the plan, which shows where they're coming in off Oak Street, there are no manholes there on that section of Independence Lane. But if you go to page 2, the very first manhole that is shown looks like it's on or around number 7 Independence Lane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The second manhole, which is on, there isn't one on page 3, but if you go to page 4, the next manhole is on around number 27 Independence Lane. Page 5 of the current plans, the next manhole is located at roughly 43 Independence Lane. And then the last manhole, just as you approach Robert Hill Way, is near number 57 Independence Lane.
So
Does that make
you're
sense?
yeah, you're gonna have to submit updated plans because our plans that we're looking at do not have the manhole at 43.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there's just 3 manholes on this plan.
One.
Oh, okay.
Two.
Okay, can we go through them? Can we go through them again then? Do you have 6 pages?
We have the same pages and we see the one in front of 57. On our plans, there's not one at 43.
Okay, hold on. 43, okay. Well, how about, are you looking at the page numbers? Is it page 5 of 6?
We're looking at those, we are looking at them correctly here. We've got pages 1 through, I believe, page 1, 2.
I have trouble reading it, but
2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5. And it looks like page 6 is the entry into Robert Hill Way. And we are all
Okay.
using 3 manholes.
Okay. The manhole that's near 43 Independence Lane is on the plan that's numbered page 5 of 6.
Not on our copy.
Not on our copy, confirmed.
Oh, that's strange. I don't know why that's the case, because this is the only set of plans I have. And this is what would have been submitted.
The,
To,
Michael, are you confirmed, are you confirming, Michael, that we only have 3?
I am, yeah, I've confirmed that we only have 3. I actually think we're missing 1 page.
yeah,
It's 5.
we don't have, is there supposed to be a 6 or?
No, it's page 5 of 6. When you look down,
page 5 is the page plan that shows the manhole near 43.
Yeah, so for,
5 and 6.
I don't know if it's our error or if it's, if we put a set of plans, but we don't have 5 or 6.
4 and 3.
Michael, you're right. I think we are missing a
4.
page because if you look at the apartment, the house numbers,
Mhm.
it goes from 35 to 43, and there's no show of the bend in the road at that point.
We're missing page 4, 5, is what we're missing.
Okay, well, page 4 of 5, that manhole is near number 27 Independence Lane. I thought somebody said that they couldn't see the manhole that was with near number 43.
I think it's 5 that's missing. I
Yeah,
think it's 5 that's missing.
5, it sounds to me like it's 5 that's missing.
Yeah. Should be right here.
yeah, the
but we
one that
don't
would have
have it.
say sheet 4 and sheet 5, because like most of them have 2 sheet
Yeah,
numbers,
this is 3, 4.
and then
this
5,
is-
6.
Yeah. Yeah, this is 5, 6. So it's 4, 5 that's missing, I guess. That's it.
If you look at the bottom right-hand
Yep.
corner, and it says, it'll tell you the address and the date on the plan.
Okay.
The pages and number down there would be page 5 of 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to read. But it looks like this is 6 of 6.
Yeah,
And
there
this is
no
4 of
5 to
6.
6. Again, I don't know if that is our error or if we didn't have the full set of plans
Okay.
submitted.
But we
Christine,
now know where they are, even though we can't see the 4th one.
Just
Yeah.
one question though, Christine, is that 3rd manhole, the 4th manhole, a similar one to the others, 6 by 10 by 8?
Let me see, hold on. 6 by 10 by 8, that's the last one there, yep. Just looking, 6 by 10 by 8. 6 by 10 by 8. They're all, they're all, they're all the same size.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
Stephen, I have one more question for Christine, if that's allowed.
Well, we're going to deliberate in a little bit.
Okay.
I'd like to get the folks that have their hands raised.
Sure.
Please.
Yep.
So Wendy, I just want to check if you had your questions answered.
The only other part of the question was, when is the plan for this to start?
As soon as possible.
So there's
Okay,
no, there's no more specific answer than just soon?
As soon as, once they get any other additional permits that are necessary, street opening permits, anything like that, they would like to get started on this right away, you know, because the town, it's a big project and they want to get it completed as soon as they can.
Could I make a suggestion?
And is it typically something they work on 7 to 3, 9 to 4? I mean, everyone obviously is home with the pandemic and children around all the time, and thinking of the impact of 70 days, especially in the summertime with everyone home all the time.
I don't know the exact time frame, like in hours during the day, but I can certainly find that out for you.
Okay, Michael, you had a comment?
Yeah, I mean, one suggestion I would have for the board is to condition this, or put a condition on here that before construction starts, the neighbor gives 2 weeks' notice.
Okay, can you, you're kind of breaking up a little bit. I think you said condition it with a 2-week notice.
Yeah, I would condition it with a condition that says that before construction can start, the neighbor will be given at least a 2-week notice.
Okay. All right,
I'm
thank
sorry,
you.
what was that? How many, what was the, before
2
the
weeks.
construction started?
Two weeks.
How much have you noticed?
2 weeks,
2 weeks.
Christine.
Okay, 2 weeks, okay.
All right. All right, Lisa, I think Lisa has I'm unmuting Lisa.
Okay, hi, thank you. Just playing off of what Wendy brought up, I think the concern is that let's say that it starts 2 weeks from today and it lasts 70 days. We are potentially gonna lose electricity, but maybe not for long, but still we're gonna lose electricity. But everybody is home right now. A lot of people are working remotely. All the kids are home. It's a very active neighborhood. And I'm just concerned about 70 days of disruption on the street during a pandemic while we're all, you know, trying to do our thing. So I just want to put that concern out there. It seems like a really long time, and the disruption to people being able to get out of their driveways and not be able to be on sidewalks. I don't know what the impact will be, but I think it will be pretty significant and for a kind of a long amount of time. That's what it sounds like.
Okay. All right, thank you, Lisa. You know, and I would certainly agree with that. And I think given the circumstances of the pandemic and people at home, I think it certainly is going to put a burden on the neighborhood. Wendy, I think you have another comment.
So this is Wendy's better half, Brian. So I just want to, obviously, this is the first time we're hearing about this, and I understand there might be notification of when this is going to start. I want to make sure, what's the process of notifying when there will be a known potential power outage? So we are all working remotely. This Zoom is working remotely. We have jobs that work remotely. What is the process? Are you going to, when it will be communicated that on August 1st, between 2 p.m. Eastern to 2:15 p.m. Eastern, prepare for a outage?
Right.
What is that process like? Because I think that's going to be.
So I think,
I believe,
if I can interject here, I just want to piggyback on Brian's comment, because I think, you know, that's a key point, and I think a key condition as well, that a construction schedule is created for the neighborhood with as much updated information as possible, so they know that. So they know if power is going to be out. They know that construction is going to be in between this house and this house at this particular point in time. So would certainly want to see us condition the approval with that as well. Okay, Christine, any comments here?
I will find out what their process is of notifying the residents. I don't know if it's they actually bring notices out and put them at the door. I don't really know, and I'm sure they give them enough pre-warning, you know, like when it's going to happen, you know, that sort of thing. But I can find that out for sure. What process they're going to use, you know, about, you know, the residents of either A, outages, B, when construction is going to start. Again, if you want to just let me know what it is that they're looking for, I can find out, you know, exactly what it is, how they'll handle it.
Okay, Michael, you've got your hand up?
I do. I would just make another suggestion instead of having Eversource kind of tell us what the process is that they're going to use, that the board determine what process they would like to use. And I would suggest a certified mailing.
Excuse me, a certified what?
A certified mailing.
Okay.
Okay, a certified mailing?
Yes.
Okay. And the
I would think
certified
about it.
mailing would, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Christine.
One at a time, please.
Okay, the certified mailing would be for when the construction is going to start, and also like if there's any kind of an outage.
Yeah, I think what we would be looking for, Christine, is for the neighbors to have as much information, timeline information as feasible, as well as any updates regarding you know, any changes that might occur along the way.
Okay.
All right.
So keep the residents informed.
Yeah.
Yes. Brian?
Okay, back to Wendy. So I'm just wondering, as far as the urgency of getting this done, I know the summertime, as we said, with the pandemic and everything being shut down, one of the few things our kids have is getting out on the street, going on their bikes, rollerblading up and down the sidewalks, and just, this is the, you know, everybody's home all the time right now, and the summertime, I'm just wondering about the urgency of, you know, getting this done immediately rather than pushing it out a bit to the fall time when the kids are hopefully at least on a hybrid plan of being in school at least part of the day and don't need to be outside trying to be as active as much.
Okay. Does Mark DeSoni have comments? So I'm going to unmute. Mark?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Wait a second. Let me turn my TV down. Yes, I do. And I'm probably thinking that this road, anybody's going to try to reply back with my TV down, I won't be able to hear you unless you pick up. And I got no audio on my headphones. I'm going through the phone. My comments and concerns would be, yes, 70 days it's definitely going to be close to 2 months project. And I'd probably say towns have to look out for the traffic. Neighborhoods got to watch out for neighborhood traffic up and down because the road's going to be blocked off, going to be worked on in the middle. And other than that, I would say to understand and get concerns back, I would say if you don't reply back till I'm done, thank you. Let's say reply back would be the best thing to individual neighborhood citizens is to get a robocall like they do townwide for emergencies and things like what Ed Bourbon does and all, is to get that out to each individual. Certified mail, people don't get their mail sometimes till after 4 or 5 o'clock, so it just may be missed on the morning and think over into the next morning. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Okay, any other comments or questions at this point? If not, I am going to, is there any other information, Michael, that you want to relay and or Christine as the applicant at this point, before we provide the board an opportunity to deliberate? Hearing none, so I'll open it up to the board for deliberation. I know, Yolanda, you had a question earlier.
Yeah, my question was, what is the material that's going to be covering these manholes?
That, I don't know. I'll ask the folks in construction. It's, normally, I think, would they normally use the metal?
Okay, so the what's being put in is 6 by 10 by 8, but the actual manhole is going to be a regular manhole cover?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. That was my
I'm sorry,
question.
when you said a cover, I thought you meant like how would they cover the trenches when they were being worked on? I didn't realize you meant the cover that would be on the manhole.
Well, I'm seeing a square that you're saying is 6 by 10 by 8.
Right, that's in the
3
ground.
feet below the ground. So above
Right.
that then is a regular manhole cover to access it.
Your typical manhole cover, yep.
Okay, that answers my question.
Okay.
And then can I just respond to Michael's about certified mail for all these notifications?
Yep.
I agree it should be certified mail for the 2-week notice. And I would recommend that they put a tentative timeline in that. But in regards to the power potentially going out, I think 24-hour notice via email and maybe some kind of phone call. Because if weather changes and they're saying it's going to be, the power is going to be out from 9 to whatever on this particular day, and they mail those out certified, and then it changes, I don't think that makes sense. And I also think town hall needs to be notified of when those outages are going to be, so we can also be aware.
Okay, any other board comments?
Yeah, I agree with Yolanda's thoughts on that. And maybe when the first mailing goes out, they can ask people for some sort of email or social media notification. So there's some way of, I don't know if there's a neighborhood association or some way of communicating with the residents about things that are happening quickly. I did want to follow up on so what about the timeliness? I don't know, Joe or Michael, what's the schedule for the development, and is there any reason we should put off this construction to for the summer, or does it need to be done now? What's our schedule on this?
Well, so this is where you're in kind of a conundrum, because if you delay this, what happens is it's going to push the whole construction cycle out. So the immediate impact of this is going to be mitigated, meaning the trench and everything, but the total disruption of the neighborhood by the construction of Robert Hill Way is going to be extended as well. I think, I think it's tough. It's like almost like pick your poison. Which one's the least convenient or the least inconvenient?
Okay. So in terms of our continued comments and or deliberation, I would ask that we provide some clarity on the conditions that we're looking for relative to this. So I don't know if anybody's compiled a list, and if you have.
I have.
Okay.
So that we require 2-week notification of when the work begins to go out via certified mail, and some type of tentative timeline as to when things will be happening. Road by road, section by section that they'll be working. A 24-hour notice of power outages via email to all residents of Independence, and notification to town hall. A full replacement of the road curb to curb, not just a patch. and they are required to respect our quiet times. So no work before 7 a.m. And I don't know our ending date, our ending time. And then I'm not sure of this, but when Eversource, I think, or NSTAR did work on Main Street, there were some specific requirements as to what they had to do with the trench they were digging every night. It was either that they couldn't just put metal plate, I forget what it was, but I'd like to find if we can those and apply that to this road as well.
Yolanda, it wasn't just the metal plates. They had to put the plates with a hot patch, so that way when the vehicles were over it, they had a smooth entry onto the plates instead of just bumping into it, which caused a lot of noise and vibration. So that would be
that same condition for this street, because it is very tight residential.
Right.
We want to mitigate that noise.
Yep, I agree. They also have an association up there too, and I think that if you need to do notification, that sending it to the association, the person who's responsible for any type of correspondence, those would go directly to all
Ask
the
them to share that there as well.
with the association. That would be another request I would ask for as well.
Okay, Brandy, Rob, any comments or additional?
The only thing is I think that, we had asked, we were talking about 24 hours notice before any power outages. I think that might, if there could be more than 24 hours notice, I don't know if 48, 72, like something reasonable so people can plan their work schedules. Because if people are working from home and need to make other arrangements, that might be something that would be better to know before rather than just 24 hours notice.
So, Christine, sorry to interrupt, Steve. If I can ask Christine a question that may help with this. Christine, you had mentioned that there's only potential for one time for power being out, correct? Is when you do the actual connection?
Energize.
Yeah.
When you energize it?
Yeah, I was told that there could be possibly an outage, but it would only be during when the cable work is going to be during the cable work. They have to energize. Once they have to energize it, so it's like they install the conduit and they install the cable, but they have to turn any. If there's any power that needs to be shut down, it would be shut down during that time of being energized.
But the potential for that is only one time, correct?
From what I understand, that's the potential of the only outage would be during that time when they have to energize the new system.
And because they're not doing it with the conduit of the other electric from the street, then it's not like they're going to accidentally cut something and people are going to lose power because they're working in a different area and not touching the power of the current power of the street, correct?
Yeah, I'm guessing that it would have to do with when they go to make the connections at the pole on Oak Street.
Okay.
See, that's the source of power is going to be coming in from, and that pole on Oak Street is going to be a source of power for this new electric system.
Right.
And in order for them to connect that and make the energizing, it may affect, anything else that's in that area because of the pole. That's what,
So then, sorry, one last thing. Then to Brandy's point, if we can get 48-hour notification, I would support that. If for some reason they can't do it within 48, then 24. The minimum would be 24.
Okay.
And if the area.
The other thing, I have a question also regarding that. I mean, are you saying that the power from the pole on Oak Street feeding Robert Hill Way is the same pole that's feeding Independence Lane?
The pole that's on Oak Street.
Yeah, I'm trying to, it's something just doesn't make sense to me here because you are putting in a completely new underground service specifically for a Robert Hill Way. And it's unclear to me as to how that would have any impact on the existing underground service on Independence Lane, unless they're all coming to the same point at Oak Street.
No, what it is if they have to cut the power at the pole for an outage, that pole has overhead wires that go to other poles.
Okay, all right,
So-
that makes
so
sense now. Okay.
Okay, so in other words, the pole on Oak Street is going to be the riser pole, which would be the overhead lines primary. They would go down that pole into the ground for Robert Hill Way. But whatever other overhead lines are supplying a feed to any other kind of a riser, which would be a separate riser for the development that's already out there, it might be impacted that way. That's where that comes from.
Okay.
It's
all right,
because
thank-
it's because of the fact that the overhead lines for that pole on Oak Street are connected to other poles and lines. But like I said, when I talked to the construction folks today, because I had a feeling this question came up, they said that there might be a possible outage, and it would only be during that time when they're getting ready to energize it.
Okay, thank you.
I
Randy?
think I was just going to say, I think if we can make sure we have a clearly defined area of where might be affected by a power outage, that would be helpful too, because if it's Independence, if it's further out than Independence, then we have to make sure that
No.
we notify people that this is going to be happening.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay, I have one more hand is raised. I'm going to accommodate this. This is the Galaxy S10.
Pardon me?
I'm not sure who this is.
Galaxy, you're on mute.
So I'm not quite sure. Okay, so
Hi.
Galaxy S10, you are unmuted.
Yes. This is Marie Cotolides from 84 Independence Lane. My question is, if it is inevitable that this is going to happen starting this summer, is there any way to have the hours of finishing with the construction earlier during the day? Like, can they be done between 2 and 3 o'clock so that the children can go out and enjoy part of the day? Because they can't go to parks, they can't go to a lot of places, they can't see their friends. So all they do, it's like ride their bikes, walk, and just be in their driveways. So you're saying that the start of the day could be 7 o'clock. So if it's 7 o'clock, can it be finished early during the day?
I think, and I'm going to defer to Michael, but I believe we do have bylaws that accommodate construction and that provide for hours between 7 and I believe 5. I'd have to verify that, but I can certainly make an argument that 7 to 4 might be a reasonable time frame. But my gut sense is that's codified. And Michael, you correct me if I'm wrong.
So, I mean, there is for general construction, but this is a poll hearing, and so you have the ability to apply that you might not otherwise. The only thing is, if you shorten the time frame during the day that they have to work, it just extends the time in terms of days that it get it done. So, again, it's another one of those, the one that's least inconvenient.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Select board members, any other comments, deliberations, conditions?
Well, just to address the last point, I think, but it's also the construction is going to go in phases, right? And it's not going to use up the entire roadway, is it? I mean, traffic and presumably pedestrians and bicyclists will be able to go around the construction while it's underway, or is it a complete blockage of the road.
Christine?
I'm sure that they're going to make arrangements for people to be able to drive and give you the sidewalks, and I can just make sure that I'll make sure I run that by them. But I'm sure that they're going to make provisions that people, they're going to try to impact this as minimal as possible.
So, all right. And you also, I think, talked about it being done in phases. So I would think not the entire roadway is going to be affected at any one time, but how long would those phases be roughly? Do you know?
Actually, let me just hold on. I've got some notes here.
So while she's looking at that, Rob, it's only not even a full half of the road that is getting impacted.
Yeah. Okay.
If you look at the map, it's from Oak Street to where Robert Hill Way is. It's about half of the street.
Yeah, I was more like, when they're working in the street, how much of that part of the street is going to be affected? Is it totally blocked off? And how long are the stretches? I presume they're working at sections at a time, right? They're going to work their way down.
Yep. They're going to be working in sections at a time. They estimate like a week or two for all of the permitting process and coordinating things with the town. It's about 3 days per manhole to build each manhole. And it's about 40 feet of conduit that would be done like per day.
So
it'll be done in sections. It'll be done in sections.
Okay. All right.
And they will make the arrangements to keep lanes, the road open so that people can travel through the roads and
Okay. Any other board comments, deliberations, conditions? All right, I have one more. The Galaxy S10 has another comment.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to get back to the comment that one of the board members made, that people could walk around it or ride bikes around the construction site. I wouldn't recommend that because that is something that is not safe. We have very young children, like under 12, that could potentially get very hurt. So I wouldn't recommend walking around or doing anything around any construction site. And my other comment is just remembering last summer with the EEE situation where nobody could be outside after 5 o'clock, having the construction go all the way until 5. And then if we get into the same situation this summer, which could potentially happen, the children will be in their house the entire day.
Okay, thank you. Any consideration for, conditioning the hours of construction?
I just think, to Michael's point, if you shorten the amount of time they can work, the potential longer this project is going to take.
Yeah, I tend to agree as well. I think, yeah.
I understand the concern for the kids to be able to go out and play, but we want to shorten the time that the street is impacted, not longer. And I think even cutting it short by an hour or two, that could really impact the time.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think the quicker this can be accomplished, would have actually the least amount of impact. It's good. The neighborhood is impacted without question.
Right.
And, if we can facilitate it in any way, I think that would be a good thing to do. So at this point, If we're satisfied with the deliberation, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Can I just ask one other thing? I'm sorry, Steve. Is there any, should we be considering any conditions about safety requirements or anything, given what that woman just said about, it doesn't strike me as a really, I just don't know. I mean, Michael, do these things, do they have their safety protocols in terms of pedestrians or nearby people and things like that?
Yes, I mean, I think Christine could probably speak to those more, but there is, again, a radius around their work zone that they.
Yes, there is.
Would we require a detail?
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think we should.
I would think they'd have one. I don't think, I mean, if we want to put it in the conditions, we can, but I would
think we
expect that
should.
they have one.
I think we should. I mean, there's always on main roads, there's always details, but I think we should here as well.
There was
a
huge Eversource project on the Holliston end of Cedar Street, and there was always details there, even as they were starting their day. So, but we can condition it.
All right. So.
Yeah, and that will when the street opening permits, when they go into the street opening permits, that will all be spelled out. What the specifics are, what the conditions are, and.
Okay, thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. I'll second.
A motion and a second. Roll call vote. Greaves.
Aye.
Kinsman.
Aye.
Mignani.
Aye.
Shear.
Aye.
Mitchell, aye. That's 5-0. And at this time, we will entertain a vote. And I would ask whoever's making the motion to be very specific with the conditions.
Okay. I move that we approve the construction of, I just want to make sure I have the right wording. Sorry. The purpose of installation to provide electric service to be done on Independence Lane with 4 manholes and 4 manhole covers, that they give a 2-week notice of work to be started via certified mail. And as part of that 2-week notice, they give a tentative detailed timeline of when specific addresses might be impacted, that they give 48-hour notice of power outages via email to all residents and to the town. And if for some reason that has to change, minimum of 24-hour notice. That they do a full replacement curb to curb of Independence Lane in the work area done, not just a patch. And that they respect the quiet times starting not before 7 a.m. and ending not later than 5 p.m. And that when they close the road at night, they need to do a tar patch with the steel plates.
Okay, did we mention the detail?
And they must have a detail. Sorry, thank you.
Okay.
Get all that, Susan and Jen?
All right. Any other comments by board members before we take a vote?
Still need a second.
We do need a second. Okay, we have a motion by Yolanda, a second by Rob. Any other comments at this point? Otherwise, roll call vote. Greaves.
Aye.
Kinsman.
Aye.
Mignani.
Aye.
Shear.
Aye.
And Mitchell, aye, and that carries 5-0. So I would just ask that that staff is, and I'm assuming, Michael, that that DPW would be the point people for this project, and that they be aware and engaged with all the conditions that we've applied thus far.
Yes, so that would be DPW and the police department, and the planning department should have a role in this.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you, all the residents from Independence Lane for your comments tonight, and hopefully we can get this accomplished with a minimum of discomfort for the neighborhood. So at this point, our next order of business is a scheduled appearance regarding a COVID financial assistance program presentation by the town manager.
All right, so can everybody hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
You're good.
So we are running a little bit over, so I will be somewhat brief. You know, everybody realizes that COVID-19 has affected the economics of municipalities, but also businesses and households. So we've been working to try to develop a number of assistance programs to maybe ease that burden as this crisis and epidemic or pandemic, I should say, goes on. So the first one I wanted to talk about is a mortgage and rental assistance and business assistance program through a portion of the 1.5 million in COVID relief funds that were recently allocated. We're going to set aside $400,000 for rental and mortgage assistance in $200,000 tranches. The program's the specifics of the program and the application, et cetera, is being developed in partnership with the Affordable Housing Trust. And Emma Snellings is, who's our assistant planner, is running point on that. So she's developing the application and everything. So we're excited to roll that out when we can, as soon as we have receipt of the funds, and hopefully we can help some people out there. The second one I want to refer to is it's a relatively new program within the Commonwealth. It's not available to all communities, but Colonial Power, who manages our aggregation program, have been working with the Department of Energy Resources to change what's known as their SMART regulations to provide benefits, financial benefits to some of the energy assistance customers. So as a result of their work with DOER, we've been selected to participate in essentially a pilot program, which is going to allow us to enter into agreements with solar facilities who in turn will be able to instruct our aggregation provider to provide a 2 cent per kilowatt reduction in their electric bills. This is for qualified low-income ratepayers. We'll have more details about that later as it comes to fruition, but we would expect that to happen later in the summer. And then finally, some of you do know about this. We are working with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council and 22 other communities to apply for funding. Ashland will be applying for $400,000 in funding through the Department of Housing and Community Development and their Community Development Block Grant funds to develop a micro enterprise assistance program. So again, this will be a regional application with 22 other communities. MAPC is coordinating it. We're serving as the lead community. An institution known as Mass Growth Capital is going to be essentially our fiscal agent for this. And so we're excited about the possibilities of that. It is a grant, so we would have to, our regional application would need to be, we would need to apply and be successful in the awarding of that grant. But hopefully with our regional application, those are usually seen as stronger applications than individual communities. And with regards to that, we're actually going to be having a virtual public hearing on the plan tomorrow night. So technically Ashland is hosting it. Beth has been working to put all of that together. So we're excited at the possibilities of that program. And Beth and Jen and Brittany have been really involved in setting that up. So those are three programs that, again, we realize it can't alleviate all of the burden associated or the financial burden associated with COVID-19. But we're doing what we can, doing what a lot more than what other communities are doing to hopefully provide some help.
Very good. Questions and comments from the board for these for any of these programs?
I do, Mr. Chair. Michael, the first program you were talking about, is that going to coincide with the Affordable Housing Trust monies that have been put aside for rental assistance and housing assistance?
Well, the hope is that we can use this and it will provide enough assistance so that you do not have to use your Affordable Housing Trust money. So
Okay,
always good to use other people's money, I guess.
that's fine. We can use that first.
Yes, we will.
We'll supplement it later. That's fine. Thank you. And is the
Yeah,
other, one
Sorry,
more,
Joe.
the other grant, last grant you were talking about, is that a matching grant? Is that something we have to match as well?
No.
No, okay, all right. Thank you. I'm good, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Yolanda?
Michael, what's the information for the public meeting tomorrow? Because I have a Metro West Regional Collaborative meeting tomorrow morning. So if you could email that to me, I can share it with the group tomorrow morning as well.
Sure, I believe it's going to start at 6, but all the details, including the Zoom link, we can send that to you.
Great. If you could
for
send
those
it to
who-
me, I can forward it to Leah and then she can send it out to the group.
Okay, and I believe it's actually posted on our website under
Okay.
postings as well.
Rob or Brandy?
I was just going to say, it sounds like a great initiative and good for you and the staff for pushing this. You know, there are a lot of COVID relief funds and efforts going on. And I think just one thing, and probably the human services people in town are already aware of this, but I would think that South Middlesex Opportunity Council is getting COVID relief funding and may be a good ally for the town in this, especially if you have needs that you feel are being unmet. You contact them. I know we in Worcester were getting COVID relief funds for community services block grant funds from DHCD. So I think they must be getting the same. So that's just another resource, another tool that you can use to provide help to people. So, but great initiative. Thanks.
And that's true. Just to go to Rob's point, and Jen's really been the point person working with human services on this type of stuff. But yes, there is going to be $10 million allocated through the CDBG money for housing assistance that is going to be dispersed through, I believe they're called the Regional Awarding Authorities, RAAs.
Oh, yeah.
SMOC is ours.
Yeah.
Good. Thank
Great
you.
resource. Yeah.
Thank you, Rob. Brandy, any questions or comments?
So I have a couple. So I think it's great that we are utilizing that $1.5 million in COVID relief funding coming and putting aside some for our businesses. And so question on the process for it. So is the Affordable Housing Trust evaluating the applications that come in, or is, you know, kind of just how is the amounts determined? If has that been decided yet? If that, you know, or are we kind of early in the process for that?
We're pretty early, but Jen, why don't you give an update on where Emma is in the process right now, or part of it?
Sure. So Emma has been doing a lot of research. There are other communities that have sort of a standing rental assistance, so not necessarily just related to COVID-19, but that they've done long-standing programs that we can learn from. There's a few models that we're looking at, and we're working very closely with the Affordable Housing Trust to get their input. That way, if we're able to use this funding initially, and then if there is a need going forth, they had already taken a vote that they would put some of their funding towards a rental assistance program. So we want to make sure that we're sort of walking lockstep, and that we can make sure that everybody is on board. So it will be basically, you will have to meet eligibility requirements. You will have to report whether you are getting additional assistance, so that we are making sure we're having a balanced approach on how we, you know, making sure we can help as many people as possible. We're looking at a couple of models. One may be that it would be an amount per month based on the number of bedrooms. And so we would look at, you know, probably 80% AMI would be part of the eligibility. And then also we would look at what the state puts out for rents for you know, a 1 bedroom, a 2 bedroom, and then probably we would consolidate the 3 and 4 and be a sort of stepped approach. But it would be a specific number, likely not to exceed more than $2,000 for those larger bedrooms. And then we're sort of still working through the details, like would that be for 1 month or would we do a 3-month? And that way that sort of gives you some time to get on your feet. So those type of details, I think we're still working through at this time. And we're hoping to sort of nail that down and hopefully open up that process pretty soon.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had misunderstood. I thought that that program was specifically for businesses instead of like bedrooms, like rental assistance for, is that more, is it for families or is it businesses for that?
So for that particular, that's really for families. Okay. I think that we have also talked about possibly doing within the COVID, the allocation sort of business assistance. And then also I think Michael spoke a little bit about the micro enterprise grant that we're working on.
Okay, that was going to be my next question, was whether or not that 400,000 through MAPC was if we had specific intentions for that, or if it was, if we had planned to use that in any specific way. But that probably answers that question. So, okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brandy. Michael or Jen, anything else to add at this point? No,
we'll provide more information on each as it evolves.
Very good. Well,
just one thing I will have to say, I neglected to mention Frank, who worked on that second one, the Eversource, the lower income rate, rate relief. Frank's getting ready to talk anyway, so I figured I'd just warm him up.
Very good. Well, thank you to, certainly to you, Jen, Emma, and Frank, and the work of the staff for putting these programs together. I think, I believe the residents greatly appreciate the work that's been done to help during this situation. So our next, for the guests that are on board with us, we are going to entertain citizen participation after we have a presentation on the community choice aggregation program, and then we're going to go into our town manager evaluation process, and then I will open it up to citizen participation. So at this point, we're going to open up a discussion of the community choice aggregation program, and Michael and Frank, I assume, are going to present this.
Yeah, if you remember, we talked about some changes to the aggregation program to maybe make it a little greener and offer a couple of different opportunities. So since that time, Frank has been working hard with Colonial Power, and I will let Frank talk to you about what he's done.
All right, thanks, Michael. I'm Frank Nakashian, the Sustainability Coordinator at Ashland. And just a quick background on what community choice aggregation is. It's a program where you aggregate all of the purchasing power of residents and businesses on the utility bills for electricity to be able to set rates so they don't fluctuate. And most of the time, the rate for electricity is going to be lower than the basic rate that Eversource has. These contracts are done through either 6 months to 3 years, and our current contract of our community choice aggregation program, the contract is expiring at the end of the calendar year. So Michael and I had discussions with them to get a new contract. We did that earlier this winter, and we selected, the rate that we want to go with. And we did make the decision to have an optional offering where any resident and business can choose to purchase the electricity for a little bit more. That's 100% renewable from New England sourced plants. And the basic rate is continuing to be, the basic services from wind farms, but outside of New England. So it's just an opportunity for people if they want to, purchase and support renewable energy for New England. So we did that, but in order to have that actually happen, we need to get that approved by the Mass Department of Public Utilities. So with that process, we worked with Colonial Power, our energy contract broker, to put together a amended aggregation plan. Now, what that means is it just lays out the regulatory components of everything we need for the town to get a new contract. And basically, before we get the contract approved, we have a couple steps in the process. So one of the steps is we posted the amended aggregation plan on the town website, and for public comment and review. And this step is just to discuss, everyone here, if anyone has any questions on it. At this time, we weren't able to list the specifics of pricing. And just because we're waiting on the DPU to approve it, this is really just the bare bones, the approval process for our aggregation plan. Once we take a vote on it, then we can send it to the DPU and they can get back to us on their comments. And then, yeah.
Well, just to clarify, Frank, that this is a modification of our existing aggregation plan that has to be resubmitted. And the expectation is for the board to vote on this evening to move this process forward.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the other question I would ask you to also explain to people out in the community that may not be familiar with the term REC, and what that is and how that functions within this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are certain RECs which are credits for energy production that comes from renewable sources. So right now on our current aggregation plan in Ashland, the default rate is 100% of the RECs from wind powered, generated outside of New England. So, probably Texas or Oklahoma, states like that, but that have a ton of land to produce, a lot of electricity for cheap. And the new offering that we're going to have in our plan, assuming it gets approved by the DPU, would be to offer the same energy, renewable energy sourced, but generated in New England. And the benefit of that is it, boosts the renewable energy economy in Mass, and it's it's a bit more sustainable because you're getting your energy directly from Mass and New England. So and then the other regulatory definition of a REC is all plans and actually all policies and electricity in Massachusetts need to have a minimum of what are called Class 1 RECs, and those are the ones that I'm just referencing, the ones that come from New England source renewables. So every single town needs at least some baseline of those, and this would be going above and beyond for folks that want to be more sustainable and support renewable energy in New England.
Great. Thank you, Frank. Comments or questions for Frank from the board?
I had just a question or clarification. I thought the renewable energy portfolio, the standard one, included hydropower from Quebec. Is that true? I thought that was a big part of it. Frank,
Yeah,
do you know the answer to that?
I'd have to look into that. I know that the Quebec power, that might go into the regular portfolio. And I think what it could be is just the regular basic service that isn't your quote unquote green. The hydropower might also be with, just regular generation from the nuclear, coal, and other sources. It might join that portfolio of power. Because I know that the Class 1 RECs, to my knowledge, those are strictly sourced from New England.
I see. Okay. But is hydropower considered a renewable energy source as part of the renewable energy portfolio?
Correct, it is.
Okay. So that's just a question. So if you get the regular renewable energy, I think you're buying into the hydropower from Quebec. So if you think that's controversial or problematic, then you probably want to avoid that portfolio, I would think. So
yeah, and just to clarify, to my knowledge, the Class 1 RECs, which would be the above and beyond green products, the Class 1s, to my knowledge, they all come from New England. So I know that the sources for those, it's wind power, it's solar, it's energy from biomass facilities, it's energy from geothermal in the Cape or Maine or other sources. I mean hydropower from Maine, the Cape, and those sources. So I don't think that it does include Quebec, but I can look into it.
Sure, probably good to know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. So just a quick clarification as well, Frank. As far as the mechanics of the program and all of the components of assuming a resident wants to opt out of the program, that remains the same. This is just an expanded portfolio adjustment.
Correct. Yeah, anything regarding with billing and entering the program and exiting the program, it's actually done through Colonial Power. So once we have the new contract, you know, on our website, there'll be an overview of it and a link to Colonial Power for them to, you know, if you're interested in opting in or opting out, you can certainly do it that way. But I think that there are definitely opportunities for us just to promote the, you know, 100% class 1 New England generated renewables for people that are interested, and just, you know, letting them know about it, because that's a good outreach opportunity that we can do. But yeah, all of the opting in or out and all of the administrative work, that's done through Colonial Power, and they work very close with Eversource on this.
Good. Thank you, Frank. Any other questions or comments from board members, please?
I'll let Yolanda go. Go ahead, Yolanda.
So lots of detail in the document you sent us, very thorough. A couple things that caught my eye in regards to submitting the plan for 15 business days. Has that been done? Or when we vote tonight, are we going into the 15-day comment period?
We already have passed the 15-day comment period.
Okay.
We posted that early May.
Okay. And then I guess just my question as well is, so if people do nothing, they'll still be in our program. It's to opt out and not use the program that they still need to do.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, at any time, any person on the default can do the basic service from Eversource.
Okay. Thank you.
You, Joe?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Frank, great presentation, and the information you provided was very helpful, especially for someone who, when I look at my bill that I get from Eversource, it's really staggering that when you look at the amount of supply that you use is less than the amount that they charge you for the delivery of the materials that are being utilized. And looking at your documentation here, you have delivery service detail, which is R1 residential. Now, are those figures based on what Eversource provides you, or is this something that Colonial does?
So the aggregation contract that I sent out to everyone, so that's pretty much just the boilerplate language of the regulatory program as a whole. You know, I'd have to really look into the weeds to give you a definite answer, but I know that, yeah, for the residential rates, how they set that up is that's through Eversource. I know that you can have a few different residential rates, sort of like what Michael was talking about on the, you know, option for them to give us the, for low-income residents, a different rate. So I know that they, you know, that part, I think it is Eversource, but I can get back to them on that. And same thing with their thresholds for businesses. You know, I don't know off the top of my head the specific rates of, you know, for businesses, how they get scaled higher or lower. So I can look into that.
Thank you. And one more quick request. I'm not sure if Colonial does any work with respect to senior citizens and lower rates or delivery rates towards seniors, and, you know, trying to help their monthly bill charges. Is there something that they have? Because I didn't see anything in this document that we're going to approve tonight to help the seniors with, you know, with their monthly billings.
Yeah, we can definitely ask that to Colonial to see if they have programs like that. I agree, that would be a great service. And, you know, maybe they have something like that available, sort of like the low income program, something similar to that.
Right. It would be extremely helpful. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Joe.
Yeah, it's definitely a good question.
Yeah. Brandy, any comments or questions?
The only question that I have, so the optional green product offerings that you're looking to add, so the idea would be to file this with DPU and be able to offer that at the same time at the end of the year. with the new contract. That's my understanding, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to be able to offer that product, we need the DPU's approval. And, once the new contract's in place, I think it's starting of December 2020, then the way it'll happen is it'll be, the default rate and then the optional New England source energy.
Okay. Now, does Colonial provide information like details that out to ratepayers? Like, how are they going to find out about the new program? Is that something that where does that information come from so that they know what the details are if they do want to opt in?
Mm-hmm. So we have reports that we get from them definitely annually, and I believe quarterly as well too. So we can look at how many people opted out, how many residents are on the program, and I just assume that since we already have that data, to be able to give us details on the numbers of households that opt in to the renewable New England option. So I think that we'll be able to get that type of data. And, I want to work with Colonial when we're getting ready to start this, close to the new contract. I want to get in touch with them so they can provide some advertising. I don't see why they wouldn't be able to, in just the utility bills, to promote the program. And I think they'd be amenable to that. I know that, other towns have done things like have lawn signs for any folks that are interested in advertising it. So I think that the advertising point is definitely a good idea to promote it.
Because I think there's going to need to be an education component. So that's where I'm going with it. Like, I think if we're looking to, offer it, we need to educate the consumers on why they might even want to consider it. So that's kind of just trying to figure out where in the process that falls.
I definitely agree. We're still trying to get this approved. So we haven't discussed that yet with Colonial Power, but I definitely agree, especially since they're handling the administrative aspects of enrolling and, handling billing, everything. I definitely agree. It makes sense for them to take the lead on that.
Okay. Thanks for your presentation, Frank. It was great. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandy.
Happy to help. Yeah.
Thank you, Frank, for the good work and all your efforts with this. So if there's no other comments or questions about this, the request is to move this forward so it goes through to the next steps in the process. Entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the aggregation plan prepared by Colonial Power Group for our Community Choice Power Supply Program as presented.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Greaves.
Aye.
Kinsman.
Aye.
Vignani.
Aye.
Shear.
Aye.
Mitchell, aye, and that carries 5-0. So good work, Frank. And you've got a couple things to get back to us on. Some questions from Joe and from Brandy and a few things. So we'll look forward to hearing back from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone, if anyone has any other questions they could think of or any other suggestions, definitely feel free to shoot me an email. So I'll be happy to get back to everyone.
Great. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. Our next item on the agenda is our town manager evaluation. I do have a statement to read, and then I'll open it up to board members as well. So this is town manager evaluation for Michael Herbert, 6/3, 2020. As part of our responsibilities, the select board hires 2 town government positions, town council and town manager. The board completed our evaluation of town council at our May 20th meeting. This evening, we will conduct the town manager's evaluation. The annual town manager evaluation consists of numerical ratings in 10 performance areas, which are supplemented with written comments. The statement is a summary of the individual evaluations from board members. Michael's composite rating from the board was either exceeds job standards or outstanding in all areas. And this is a 1 to 5 rating, 1 being unsatisfactory, 5 being outstanding. The categories are personal characteristics, professionalism, public relations and communications, board support and relations, community leadership, organizational leadership, personal management, personnel management, financial management, operations and infrastructure, and planning. The average composite score for Michael's evaluation this year was 4.4. Over the past year, Michael continued to work closely with the Select Board to implement our shared vision and goals and to act in the best interest of Ashland as a whole. Michael demonstrates a strong commitment and skill set in his interactions with residents and stakeholders and continues to work on opportunities to improve the town's public relations. The results of the most recent community survey indicate increased resident confidence in local government leadership. The commitment to residents and stakeholders is also evident with the town's response to the Eversource project, which required a large investment in time, energy, legal efforts, and community discussion. Michael received high marks for organizational leadership, personnel management, financial management, and operations and infrastructure. He has assembled and developed a high-quality team and has gender diversified the staff, particularly in key department head positions. Town staff are perceived to perform in a professional, committed, and effective manner. Key hires this past year were Chief of Police, Planner, Assistant Planner, and Sustainability Coordinator. Michael was tested this year with the need to react to COVID-19 and adjust quickly to an unforeseen event. Creating the COVID-19 task force and coordinating the team to fill numerous resident needs during the pandemic is an example of his creative thinking and his team building skills. Michael's financial management skills continue to improve the town's financial stability, as well as employing creative and innovative ways to fund existing projects and provide new services. He continues to work successfully with the school department and school committee in an efficient and transparent budget process. Michael's financial skills have also provided the foundation for the town to address the financial challenges created by COVID-19. Several areas of focus that the Select Board has identified for the next year are continued communications improvement with the Select Board, continue to work on and complete the strategic plan, proactive communication with residents, and the continuation to improve staff expectations and accountabilities, among several others. It can be challenging working with 5 elected officials, each bringing their priorities and their passions. COVID-19 will also test Michael's capabilities, but the board is confident that his strengths will continue to advance the best interests of Ashland. In summary, the town manager's performance is rated very highly by all board members across all performance areas. He is viewed as dynamic, creative, and a forward-thinking leader who is committed to the welfare of the Ashland community. It is clear that our organization is better today than a year ago. I would like to conclude with a few direct quotes from board members. Michael is a strong town manager for Ashland and always puts the well-being of the residents and his staff above his personal interest. He is a trusted member of the community and a trusted partner to the Select Board. He has assembled a strong leadership team and has shown prudent judgment to fiscal decisions. Under Michael's leadership, Ashland is well positioned for the future. Michael has shown real growth in his position as a town manager over the last year. In most instances, he exceeds the job standards and at times is outstanding in his dealings with issues. I enjoy working with Michael and find him to be a real asset to the town of Ashland. And finally, final comment is Michael's zest, commitment, and passion for the job and the sought after accomplishments are staggering in nature. Michael's mission statement parallels that of the board's mission statement, which provides a sense of commonality and cohesiveness with the current board. So that's our composite statement. I'd like to open it up to the, certainly to Michael to respond, as well as board members to make any additional comments.
I mean, I can start. I've never been shy before. Well, you know, first of all, it's an incredibly generous statement. I really do appreciate it a lot. You know, I take this process very seriously. I take the feedback very seriously. And, I'm glad that everybody seemed to be able to agree on the things that I could improve upon constructively and some of my strengths, in addition to some of my weaknesses. Um, it's been a challenging year for a number of different reasons. But I will say through it all, two things that have been incredibly stable and grounding for me have been, first of all, the select board. Um, as you pointed out, when you have 5 elected officials, each with their varying opinions and issues and priorities, it can um, be very challenging. And I am pretty lucky in the fact that this board, even though you have your own opinions and your own priorities, you have found a way to sort through infighting or arguments based on personality clashes and are able to resolve those issues and give me firm direction. And so I thank you for that. And second, of course, I just can't speak enough about the staff. So I have to single out Jen as well as Susan and Diane here in the office. First of all, we all know who really runs the town, and it's Jen Ball. And obviously, things wouldn't get done unless there was Susan and Diane. But our whole staff is really incredible, and many of them, they've been non-traditional hires, and I've had some people look at me crazy because I ended up choosing one person over another. But, to me, it's almost instinctual. The skill set is important, but the chemistry with the rest of the team is important. And then also the desire is important. And many of the people that we have hired feel strongly that they're here to serve the public and not that the public is here to serve them and give them a job. So again, I just can't say enough for all of them. So again, thank you very much. It was a very generous review. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you. And I think, it's always good to hear, your comments, particularly about the staff as well. And, I think, you're absolutely right. And I think, I'm just reflecting on my tenure on the board and the evolution and the improvements of the organization during that period of time. And, it's clear that we're a much better organization today than we were in 2010 or even last year or the year before that. So, kudos to you and the staff. And of course, you've got, and I agree with you. I think we've got a good board that works well together, that we support each other, that we've really developed a team to accomplish many of the agendas and the projects that are going on. So I'll open it up to the rest of the board for any of their comments at this point. No one?
Oh, well,
I was waiting, so.
He was being polite.
All right, who's going first? Yolanda.
Okay. It's funny. I remember, sort of pushing Michael to finish his review this year. And even though everything was going on, I felt it was important for us to do the process of reviewing him and talking to him about what he's doing and how well he's doing. And of course, areas of improvement. That was a great statement, Steve. Thank you for pulling that together. Each of us has to review Michael, and then you do a sort of group assessment and put that together as chair. So thank you for that. We are very fortunate to have Michael. He has definitely grown in his role as town manager. I think he is getting better at working with 5 different personalities and sometimes 5 different agendas. But I think we as a board are working to recognize that it's better if we work together and support Michael and support the staff in what we're all trying to do. So I just thank Michael for the work that he's done. Of course, there's always areas of improvement, and I'm glad that we can have that discussion, because as people and in our jobs, there's always things that we can do better. So I look forward to working with him for at least another year, and and helping him do that and helping the board work with him to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Yolanda. I think Rob, you were ready to be poised, but before you start, I just wanted to thank Rob particularly because he did a really good presentation of Michael's review, and I used his template and modified. I thought he did just a terrific job. So thank you for kind of setting the standard for a town manager's evaluation. So thank you.
All right. And thanks, Steve, for putting it
Can I
together.
ask, how was it different, Steve?
How was it different? I used my own words. I mean, the way that Rob had structured the evaluation last year.
Oh, okay.
So I just kind of used that as my jumping off point. But
Okay,
I was really impressed about the way Rob did it. So why reinvent the wheel? Just
no. Okay.
put my
I
own
didn't
words
understand what you
and
meant. Okay. Sorry.
Right. All right. Thanks. Yeah, I just, in terms of, I don't have too much to add to what Steve has already presented. I just, I think one of Michael's, of course, the staff development, financial management, but one of his one of his strongest points I find is ability to listen to people and suggest and find solutions. I mean, we're constantly on him to, kind of negotiate and come up with something. And I think, that's, part of, like, if you look at the budget this coming year, it shows that strengths all come together, that we're, have a budget that is not that we have some hope that it'll be relatively normal, which I think is great in this time frame. So, and the only thing which I talked to Michael about is that to strengthen working more closely with board members when it comes to public communication and public leadership. Michael shows a lot of strong leadership, and I think it works best with with the select board. So anyway, so congratulations, Michael, on another very strong year as town manager, and look forward to continuing that relationship. And congratulations to your staff as well, Jen and Susan and Diane, and all the other key people that make it all possible. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Joe?
Oh.
Now, Joe, you're the one that has to sit next to him at when we were actually in the boardroom that sat next to Michael. So, you have any any comments on that or
not publicly? No. I just want to say that I'm very honored to be working with the select board that's here. I think we work well together. We all have our opinions about many things, but we compromise and we work things out. And I find that Michael does the same thing. I've said it in this review, and I'll continue saying it as long as Michael is a town manager, that he has surrounded himself and has hired people around him that work well with him. They complement him in every way. And that is a sign of a true leader and a person who knows what the hell is going on. And Jen, you do a great job. You're a great second person to have Michael depend on you, as well as Susan and Diane in the office as well. There's a lot of things that people don't know that go on behind the scenes, and you are the folks that make this all happen. Michael is the figurehead, and he comes up with some great ideas, but you folks are the ones that push it and get it through, and we just supervise. We just watch it happen. Needless to say, everyone is correct about the fact that this has been a unique year, and we're just in June. God only knows what's ahead of us for the rest of the year. I hope things calm down. We have a lot of projects going on. That would be the only issue that I have with Michael, is that he continues to push, and put projects or other actions on the table. And it just gets, for me, I worry about the fact that you're gonna just walk away saying, that's it, I've had enough. Because you're just so stretched out with everything that we're doing. And I'm afraid the other people that work with you are going to say the same thing. That would be the only thing that I have. But other than that, I couldn't be any happier to have you as a town manager. Your conservatism has been incredible. Steve has mentioned it. There was a wonderful article in today's Ashland newspaper about the fact that, our rainy fund, when you first came on, was, in the thousands. And today we're closer to $7 million. That's why we're not jumping off out of windows yet, because you were able to foresee and use your conservative approach to save money for a rainy day. Well, the flood is here, never mind rain. The flood is here, and you've done an outstanding job. I'm thankful to be working with you, and I look forward to continue the next 2 years and continuing the work that we have ahead of us. And I promise I won't put anything else on the table until we get everything else done. So, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Well said. Brandy, you're up.
Okay, so I just wanted to say thank you to Michael and to all of you, really. You guys have gotten me through this first year. Michael has, I told him when I sat down with him that I think he has an amazing amount of patience and compassion, not just with me, but with all the residents of Ashland. I think that, Michael doesn't technically live in Ashland, but I think he treats everyone in the town like he is their neighbor. So to me, that means a lot. So it's been a really good first year. I told Michael I had problems doing this evaluation because it's kind of like, how do you boil everything down into a couple of sentences? So, but I've appreciated working with you, Michael, and all of you. And this has been it's been a challenging year, but it's been a good year. So, but I do think you are a very strong town manager, and Ashland's lucky to have you. So thank you for all the work that you do and for all the work that your staff does, because you guys do keep taking on more and more, and you don't say no to anything. And that could be a bad thing, but I think that our town is very lucky to have you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. Well said. So, at this point, Michael, what's our next steps? Typically we start to review look at your contract and things of that nature. So next steps at this point, we're not going to get into them this evening, but let's at least, I guess we'll start the process.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly, yes. Yes, that's certainly not expected at this point. But if, the practice that we have done is to, upon a good review, extend the contract a year. And I would be happy to do that if that's what the board wishes.
Okay, so why don't we defer that possibly for our next meeting, or a meeting soon to be held, and we can work on that. Since it's not on the agenda tonight, we do it officially at another meeting. Does that work?
Works for me.
Okay, very good. If there are no other comments, again, you just want to thank Michael, thank the staff, and we look forward to, another year of challenges and opportunities for that matter. And I think, cream rises to the top, as they say. And I think, I think that's demonstrated certainly by the team that Michael's assembled. So enough glorification of the town manager. I think we should move on.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Our next agenda item, as I discussed, is citizens' participation. At this point, if you have comments, please raise your hand. Mr. DeSoni, I will unmute you at some point so that you have your opportunity. I don't want to miss you. So anybody that wants to have a comment, please raise your hands. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody raising their hand. I'm going to unmute.
Chuck
I
is
think
raising
Chuck
his
and
in the
Lynn.
picture,
Oh, he's
Yeah.
raising his
in
on
his
the,
video, not on the side.
I'm not looking
Yeah,
at a
he's-
gallery view. So Chuck Lids, you're on.
Okay. I just wanted to ask a question, which is about given where we are nationally with the Black Lives Matter issue and so forth, whether how the town has thought about policing rulings and managing minorities, managing the use of force and so forth. I'm unfamiliar with this, but I thought it was at least a good time to raise that issue.
Yeah, well, I think it is too, Chuck. I agree. I think we're all of us are struggling with the events that have occurred and that are occurring. And I did actually talk to our police chief this morning. I wanted to check in on him, and we did talk about possibly having him at our next meeting to talk about the issues and talk about, in essence, what 21st century policing is. And I don't know if you saw President Obama earlier this evening. He gave a short talk, and but he talked about his 21st century policing task force, and I think it certainly addresses all the issues and the concerns that you're certainly indicating, Chuck. And I think for many people in our community that feel strongly about making things different and better. And so I would anticipate at our next meeting, we would have that opportunity to have Chief Alfano speak to that and speak to some of the, and he he talked about some of the programs and the certifications that are, from his viewpoint, are going to be mandated in terms of, sensitivity trainings and bias trainings and force trainings and so on. So I think it's clear that we should know, because I don't know myself, Chuck, as well, whether what the specific trainings consist of. So not sure if that's satisfactory.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anything else, Chuck, at this time?
No, that's very helpful.
Good to see you. Anyone else for citizens participation? I'm going to unmute at this point, Mr. DeSoni. Mark?
Yes, I'm here.
Are you, do you have any participation at this point?
I got a few. I turned down my volume so I can go straight through them, and think what Mr. Liz brought up was a good time, they think, but I'll be way in bed with good breath to hear that about the how the blue is doing 21st century. But congratulations to the manager reporting and the judgment and keeping them here for a couple more years. This means I get to wear them down a little bit more. Okay, let me finish, because I got a couple more, and I'm going to thank you at the very end. Just shake your head, Mr. Town Manager. Did you get my email?
I did.
Okay, don't answer yet. And I would like to volunteer if I can. That's what's part of what it is. But to Steve, our chairman, a couple of weeks ago, we're like doing citizens bucking heads, and we understand each other now. And I thank you for letting me come through. So I'm okay. Let me finish. And to the board, I haven't changed, and Joe, yeah, what the hell are we doing? That's what we're doing well in this town, and it's all good. And to Jen, yeah, you got Mike and you together, so it's two horses with one tail. gonna be working together and riding along together. And Yolanda, I like your show around the clock, but this is my citizens understand that when the select board meeting, when you come up with the notes and what happens, your time is right there. My time is here, so I'm happy with that. ACA, thank you for letting me have being on, not being censored. And to the board itself, and it's June and it's a humid night out, I'm just cooling down, chilling. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. And by the way, I don't think that we were butting heads. I think it was just my getting up to speed in the Zoom environment. So I think I've got it down better now, so I'm not going to miss you at subsequent meetings, all right? All right, I don't see any other hands raised, so we are going to move on and complete our discussion regarding the outdoor dining and reopening.
Mr. Chair, can I just say something about Chuck's question about this, the death of George Floyd? Because I think it does bear some commentary, and I'm sure we've all been affected by this and are all thinking about it. And especially, I think, our responsibility as public officials here, are to do our part. And I think I appreciated Chuck's question and your response, and the fact that the chief will be coming in at our next meeting. I wanted to remind board members about the excellent email we received, I thought, from an Ashland resident about talking about policing best practices and kind of, and many of the things you mentioned, Steve, about the type of recruiting, the training, complaint procedures, things like that, accreditation. So I'm happy that the chief is coming in. I do want to note that this, this horrible incident has reminded us all, I think, of the original sin of this country, which is slavery, which helped build this country. And we've been dealing with 400 years really now of discrimination. And, this is another reminder that we still have things to work on, and that this must end. And and I think the police are just part of that. And the responsibility is all of us, and all of us as this community in a variety of ways. And so I'm happy to hear that the chief is coming in, and we'll talk about how to make sure that Ashland's part of the solution and not part of the problem. And I do want to note that I think most of us have a favorable impression of the police and how they operate. And I've noticed trends, and I'm sure other people have in the past few years, about de-escalation, for example, and being a little more sophisticated, nuanced in dealing with people. I do want to note that whole mental health counselor that Chief Davis started or was involved in. It was a great thing, and I think that's been working out great. But I think it is incumbent on us to note this and to be, to be part of the solution and continue, to make sure that this doesn't happen, certainly here or anywhere else. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to that.
Good, thank you, Rob, and well stated. And I think, just to piggyback a little bit on your comments, I believe, if we truly believe that we have community values, then we're all responsible for maintaining those values, and we're all responsible for each other. And, whether we're a parent, a teacher, a first responder, an elected official, I think it's something that we should be cognizant of and act on, not just during times of crisis, but but every day. Be part of our way of being every day. And I'll reflect on President Obama earlier talks. He has got an organization called Brothers Keeper, and I think if we start to look at our relationship to each other in that regard, it might help to start to change things. So I appreciate the comments. Anybody at this point, any other board members have any comments? I would like to move on. I think we probably have a more expanded conversation when the chief comes, an opportunity to ask questions and also to comment as well.
I'll save my comments for board reports.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so that being said, we're going to move on to our discussion of outdoor dining and reopening guidelines. Jen, I'm sorry that I had to cut you off earlier, but if you can you pick up on where we're at and what we need to do tonight?
Sure. So I think where we were, so we're just sort of talking about the process. So as I had previously said, Beth Reynolds, our economic development director, and our planning staff have really worked hard on putting together a process, really sort of thinking through all of the elements that we might need in terms of information from the business owners so that they'll be ready to open when they can, which at the very earliest would be Monday. We are not getting, the governor says that he will make another announcement on Saturday on where we will be for phase 2. But so in the interest of trying to get the businesses ready by Monday, we want to bring them to you. So ultimately, what our restaurants will be required to do is first and foremost, they have to follow and adhere to the minimum standards, and then also the standards that the state released for outdoor dining. And we link to that as part of our application process, and they will have to certify that they are complying with all of those rules and regulations. And then additionally, we did have some more information that we thought we could use to make sure that we have permits and that make sure that our public safety and planning folks feel that we have a safe plan for any diners that might actually support our restaurants as they open up. So the application will require a sketch plan that will outline their seating. It will also outline their areas. If they're using umbrellas, if they're using a tent, they actually will have to apply for a permit. And again, the application has a link there. We sort of expect that we may need to sort of help people through that process. Additionally, the sketch plan will have, if there's any other planters or other fixed objects so that we know, in terms of traffic, egress, that we're able to move people in and out. I had mentioned previously that they will have to comply with ADA compliance. And so, there has to be at least one outdoor seating table that is fully accessible. And then also they have to maintain a certain distance so people can move from business to business, and that will all be part of the application. Additionally, we're going to ask them to include a safety plan that will talk about lighting, that will talk about the handicap accessibility. Again, it will talk about signage and how they have the available egress, because they're required to make sure that they can have enough space between people coming and going at the tables, that they can really continue to social distance. They're not allowed, no business is really allowed to have a shared outdoor dining space. And so, each would have to have a barrier. It's just really for contact tracing purposes, because they will have to have that information in case anyone does test positive, so that we can continue continue to be able to trace the cases as fast as possible in hopes to mitigate further spread. And then, so yesterday, I think we were quickly going, we were going to talk about that. Yesterday also, the new law had passed that we can actually expand liquor license to outdoor seating, and that would certainly require additional approval from you as the local licensing authority. And so we were hoping that the sketch diagram that lays out the seating to scale and will have a safety plan. They will have to adhere to the regulations. There's alcohol patio regulations for businesses that previously had outdoor serving licenses that they would have to adhere to. And one of those items is that if you cannot visibly see your outdoor space, that you would have to have somebody in management that can see all of the tables, and that would have to be during the entire serving time. And so our application also asked that question. So we're hoping to really streamline that process so that if you approve this process, our staff could potentially really sort of work through the seating elements and make those approvals. And then we would bring to you anybody who is requesting an expansion of their liquor license. Again, in the effort to sort of expedite this process, what we were going to do is ask folks who are interested, and Beth has been working with a number of restaurants that have expressed interest just as we work through this process, and that they would have an application to us maybe by the weekend. So they have not seen the full application yet. That we've certainly been talking to them about expectations, but by the weekend, and then hopefully maybe Tuesday morning, we could have a meeting where we actually present all the applications for expanded liquor license, and you can work through those if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, Jen. I think Beth is on the line.
She is.
As well, if she has any comments.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Beth.
Hi. So I have been working with, so far I've had 8 restaurants that have responded to the initial email out to them if you're looking to do outside seating. So I expect a few more will possibly come in, but they're receptive. Obviously, they want to do what they can do to open and to get the people back in their door. So whatever way we can help, that is really our goal. And that's what our team has really been working hard to do in preparation of phase 2, knowing what was going to sort of be coming down the line. Yeah, this is kind of what we've come up with as a collaborative effort.
Okay, thank you. Joe, before I get to you, I just want to ask a couple questions first. So just to understand, and I realized, from the board's perspective, we've gotten a lot of material in a short period of time, predominantly because it's just new orders from the governor and new commentary from the ABCC, et cetera. And then also your program guidelines that you assembled and distributed today. I hope all board members have had an opportunity to at least scan through and get an understanding of this. But just to clarify, so tonight, what we're looking to do is 2 things from the board. Number 1, approve this guideline process, which would allow, as you call the planning, the community development department to review and approve these plans, these applications, and then the board to also, so the board would need to vote to approve those guidelines in that process, and then the board would need to establish a meeting on or around June the 8th in order to approve the alcohol license process as well. Is that correct for Jen?
Yes, okay. That's correct. Steve, the only other thing I didn't mention that I should have is that if any business is requesting to use public space, even just a piece of the sidewalk, we would have to work with them to have an additional agreement. So, that would, a license agreement, basically an access agreement that they can access our property. That would also indemnify the town if, anything happens while they're using that piece of property, as well as insurance. So, it's something very similar to when we allow businesses to pop up at the corner spot. So, we have these agreements. So we would work with town council to make sure that we could solidify that.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Jen. And I think, I think it's fair to say that all of us are committed to supporting our business partners in town and seeing, they've had a rough several months, and we're looking to assist them in any way that we can. And it looks to me like you've put together, a good plan and a program. So at this point, I'll open it up. I know, Joe, you had your hand up.
I did. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is both for Jen. One of the concerns that I have is we have restaurants already in town that have outside seating and outside service already. I can think of some of them off the top of my head. TJ's is one of them. Oregon Club, Erica's on Front Street, just to name a few. And I believe Burnham's has their outside seating as well. And they also serve liquor out there. So do they have to go through the same process again?
No, I don't believe so. I think that if they expanded, no, I don't believe they would have to, because they actually have the ability to serve outdoors. But if they are changing their outdoor seating space, they would still provide an application to us So if they're doing expanded
Okay.
outdoor seating, we would certainly have, they would certainly fill out the application so that we would look at all of the layout of the tables and making sure that they have the proper barriers in the safety plan.
Okay, because I know that when we do liquor license and approval for liquor licenses, one of the things that we have to do as a board before we give the approval is look at a diagram and to see all the different, you know, seating arrangements and things of that nature. So that's going to be something that we would have to approve as well. Is that still in effect? I'm assuming.
That is correct, Joe. We, as the local licensing authority, we would need to approve any expansion of their serving footprint. So in other words, if TJ's wanted to put a tent out in his parking lot.
Yep. Like they do on Marathon Day. You have to come and get
we would need to approve that expansion of the footprint, and the governor's order has an end date. It's November the 1st on this. So, or whatever, or if there's an earlier date by which openings change or things are rescinded or whatever. But any revision, any expansion of the footprint, because you're right, we do, when we approve an alcohol license, it's based on a footprint. So any expansion of that would be part of this application process.
So, Jen, you mentioned something like corner spot to be utilized, where that is still town-owned property. Are we going to start lifting the restrictions on certain, certain? Oh, you just use that as an example.
No, I was using that. Sorry, I was using that as an example as something. So when we have allowed businesses to use our property, we get a license agreement and that requires insurance with indemnification.
Right.
And so I was using that as an example. So sorry to confuse that.
Okay, no, that's fine. Because it was always the insurance writer, the whole aspect of it. Yep, I got it. Not a problem. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Who? Yolanda, Rob, Brandy.
So a couple things. So I was looking through this. I think your plan is very thorough. I have a question about restrooms and having restrooms available. I thought there was direction that wasn't supposed to happen.
No, they can use the indoor space for restrooms.
Okay. And then the other question I had was in regards to parking. I know you have some comments that they still have to meet the bylaws of one parking space for every 4 seats. But then there's also a part where they can actually put some of their outdoor seating in their parking areas.
You have to think they're going to be reduced quite a bit. So you're going from a restaurant that might have 100 seats to one that might have 50 outside. So their parking requirements will obviously decrease, but they can't decrease their amount of spots and increase, the ratio is still going to have to be there before.
Okay. And then the other thing, to Joe's point about those businesses that already have outdoor seating and are able to serve outside. So just to verify, they are still going to have to submit plans as to how they're going to conduct business, right? I mean, every business, because they're going to have to change the number of seating and their cleaning schedules and things like that, correct?
Wrong. That's incorrect. If they have outdoor seating now, so let's look at Stones. They've got a patio.
Yep.
That's their existing, that's the part of their existing license. What they have to do in terms of the reopening, of course, is they're going to be restricted as to the number of tables in that space.
Correct.
What this is driving is for businesses now to be looking into other areas, whether it's a parking lot or an additional adjacent space. That's the footprint that expanded footprint is what we would need to.
Okay, so there's still that 2-step process. We have to verify if they have an alcohol license with us and they're looking to expand their outdoor footprint. As a town, and again, it's not us, but just so people understand, and so that I can clarify it for myself, if a restaurant wants to open using their current outdoor space, there are still steps that they have to take to do that, correct?
Yes, the Board of Health would monitor that.
Okay.
And just
That was
like
all.
every business that sort of as we move through the phases, each of the businesses do have to have a plan. What we've been asking, it's sort of this self-regulation. You have to have this plan. If there are complaints, they have to have that available for us to review. And so obviously the Board of Health would go out and be compliance. So that's occurring no matter what type of business is.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Brandy, Rob?
So I think the plan is great. I think it'll be great to have our businesses be able to open and expand their outdoor seating. My question is, in the application, there's a little bit of a reference to it, but in some of the documentation that we got back from the governor and stuff, there's not any indication about capacity. Is there like a formula that you guys use as far as, it says like a maximum of six people per table, but it doesn't, and it says like socially distant as far as like tables, but I wasn't sure if there's like, how do you determine what the max capacity of the space is?
In their diagrams, they have to show the 6-foot clearance between tables and chairs. So just by doing the diagram and putting that together, you pretty much find your capacity. The governor didn't mention that it was 25% occupancy. I would assume that might come down the pike when they open indoor seating. But this is what we're working with, is just the social distancing guidelines.
Okay. And then also just assuming, and this is an assumption, but that I know businesses are currently doing takeout with alcohol. So I assume that would continue. And then this seating is really specifically for served patrons, correct? Like they're not going to do takeout and then, sit outside, correct?
Right. This would be table service.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to that's what I assumed, but I just wanted to double check. So, thanks.
Thank you, Brandy. Rob, any questions or comments?
Yeah, no, I think it's, I read quickly through the plan. It sounds good. And I think, throughout the Commonwealth, towns are looking at the same kinds of things. I'm glad we're going to be able to be flexible and help folks start up. I just had a question for Beth. How are our restaurant people doing? I know there's some plans, like I was reading about the Cape, some are not opening for the season, some are closing completely. How are our folks doing here in Ashland in general? I know we had that great program, the Rest RRR relief program, and so how are they doing? How's the morale out there, the optimism or lack of it?
Oh, I think the morale, I think we have a ways to go with the morale, unfortunately. But, they've been holding their own. They've been positive through it all. The 3R program helped a lot with those businesses that participated in that. They were very grateful for that. And it's still going through the end of the month. We are phasing it out this month, but that has been very helpful. I think they're doing the best they can. Revenues they're still making money. For the restaurants, at least. We did lose Dosa Temple. They did have to close. But, I'm hopeful, Sunnyside just opened up again this week. So be sure you go in and say hello to them for takeout. So I'm hopeful that we can sort of start the process of getting back up and running.
Yeah. Now Dosa closed as a restaurant, but is reopening as a market, correct?
Yes, he hasn't publicly announced that yet, but he's
working.
That's okay. He's working on the plan. He just didn't want a million questions yet. He just kind of is still getting his plan together, but he's not totally leaving Ashland, and he might have a really great product coming down the pike.
No, that's good. Okay. Well, we'll look forward to it. So a great work by Beth and Jen on this and the rest of the community development staff. So just to reiterate, we will need to take a vote to approve this process, this document in this process. And also we will need to consider a date for the board to meet to adjudicate the alcohol permits. And right now the operative date is June the 8th, that it's anticipated the governor is going to go into this phase 2. And it looks like we'll have applications sounds like 8 of them to work on as of either the 8th or the 9th. So we should be planning a meeting for Monday. And
That's good.
I think if we can, well, I would leave it to Jen and to Beth to say, is Monday the best day or Tuesday the best day to schedule the meeting so that we're most efficient?
How much time would you need to review these? I mean, it's really, I mean, I can, if the businesses have the weekend to get that all put together, then I just don't know how much time you want to review it before your meeting.
Like at least a day.
If we had a day, I guess would be fine. I mean, I don't anticipate that this is going to be a drawn out process. I think most of them are going to be pretty straightforward, I would think. So, I would say if we had a day to review and then a meeting that's solely dedicated to this, I think we can be pretty efficient.
Okay. I mean, that's really, yeah, I'd like to give them, a little bit of time to turn it around. But I mean, most of them already have their ideas put together. I have to say they've all been very creative.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the turnaround on our part. So I would say either Monday night or Tuesday morning is fine. Up to you. I mean, the sooner the better.
Well, we'd need to post, if we're doing Monday, we'd need to post soon.
The thing is, a Monday, Monday day, if we get it Monday morning, I know from my work schedule, probably wouldn't get to really look at it until Monday night. So for me, it would be better sometime Tuesday so that I have, to at least a chance to review it.
Yeah, and I think if that's, that's reasonable. I think Tuesday, if we can do it Tuesday morning, then I think that would help the businesses. I think, we just need to be cognizant of giving them, I'm sure they're going to be chomping at the bit to get
right. I understand.
Open and working. So
whatever you need to schedule, I'm confident. If I'm not available, I'm confident my fellow board members will make the right decision. I think Tuesday I'm probably available. Monday night I'm probably not, but
okay,
whatever works, I think.
So Beth and Jen and Michael, this if we do Tuesday morning, if we can schedule something. Does 9 o'clock work for people? Too early?
Yeah, I can't on Monday morning. I could after like 11 o'clock, but I can't before then.
Okay, can you do 11?
I could do 11.
Okay.
And this is all, based on the governor,
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
So
and also, I don't know if we also want to just put in one little line in there that says no outside entertainment. Chief Alfano did email me late this afternoon and said, all entertainment would have to go through the select board as usual. So if we just want to put a clause in there, this, outdoor entertainment is not in this application. It would be separate.
All right, so let's, does Tuesday, 11 a.m. work for the board? Joe?
Yeah, I just looked at my schedule. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I can do Tuesday at 11.
Okay.
I can make that work.
Tuesday at 11, so.
I could probably do it a quick one, yeah.
Okay.
I don't have anything scheduled right
Jen,
now.
can you schedule a meeting for us? Or Susan, if you're still on the phone, if you can schedule a meeting for Tuesday at 11 a.m. And I'll send you, an agenda, quick one-line agenda.
And that's if the governor approves opening.
That's conditional on the governor approving the reopening as anticipated, but we don't know.
Right, and if he doesn't, then we don't need to have the meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Good,
Well,
thank you.
It would still be really great though to get that done, to get that approved. It's probably not such a rush then, but it would still be nice to let the
okay. So either way, we should do it, and that way, our businesses are ready.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Absolutely.
Okay. Good point, Beth. All right, so let's get the order of business this evening completed, which is approving this document and the process is presented.
Okay, I move that we approve the temporary outdoor dining program as presented. It does not include entertainment. And thank you to Beth and Jen for pulling this together.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second, a roll call vote. Reeves?
Aye.
Kinsman?
Aye.
Mignani?
Aye.
Shearer?
Aye.
and Mitchell, I. That carries 5-0. So good work.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Jen.
Continue the good work, kiddo.
All right, and we'll expect to see you next Tuesday at 11, hopefully. All right, next item on our agenda, and our last item under old new business, is the Boston Marathon cancellation and our grant program. So unfortunately, we're all aware the marathon has been canceled for the year. The question is, how do we address our runners and the fundraising that has been accommodated at this point? And I think we have a couple of options to do. We can, some runners may be doing the virtual marathon in the fall. Some runners may choose to defer to 2021. And my own feeling is I think we should give the runners the opportunity to make that decision and let us know whether they want to defer or whether they're going to participate in the virtual. I open it up for discussion.
I agree, Steve. I think, for our runners, if they're going to participate in the virtual and they have the number that, we can keep them. But if they want to defer till next year, we need to defer that. I think things are very different this year and we need to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, in terms of our grant program, I think at this point, a lot of our traditional grants are not really being needed this year at this point. And I think we're in a position to, supplement programs and activities as they come up and as they're needed or as we see fit. So, I think we're in essence deferring our grant program at the same time. So does that make sense to folks, that we give the runners the option to make their own decision here?
Yes, sounds good to me.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, Joe?
I don't think he's there. I think he stepped away.
Oh, stepped away?
And,
okay.
Yeah, and they just need to notify Susan what they're going to do.
Yep. So, Susan, I know you don't have to come on board at this point. I know you're listening, but maybe we can draft a communication to the runners and let them know what we've decided, and then they can communicate with us what their individual plans are. Okay. I think we should probably take a vote on this, but let's wait for Joe to get back.
Oh, I'm back. I'm fine.
All right. Did you have any comments on this before we?
No, I agree with the sentiment that it should be up to the runners. They're the ones that are doing all the work. They did all the fundraising. That should be up to them to make that decision. And if the others don't want to do anything right now, we keep it in. We keep those monies in that account and don't touch anything until the following year. I'm fine with it.
Okay. We can, if there's something that comes up, I mean, just like we did the 3R program, we did that, we did a donation there. We've done a donation in terms of DAX, a memory of DAX. We can do those things as things come up.
Okay.
All right. So I think at this point we should have a vote as to what our decision is.
I move that we allow the runners who have our bibs for 2020 to determine by themselves if they will participate in the virtual event that's happening and or defer their run until the spring of 2021. If they do the virtual, we would ask that they do the fundraising for the virtual, or they can defer and do the fundraising in the spring and run then.
I'll second.
Okay, good motion and the second. Roll call vote. Greaves?
Aye.
Hinsman?
Aye.
Mignani?
Aye.
Shearer?
Aye.
And Mitchell, aye, and that carries 5-0. So thank you for that, and that's the end of our old new business. Our priority project update is next on the agenda. Michael, you're up.
Sure. So the first one on the agenda is the Rail Transit District. I really don't have much of an update at this time. I think the board's been pretty consistent in what they've asked for. So that has been presented, and the ball is in UGC's court.
Okay.
Next, the downtown project, Riverwalk in Mill Pond. So this one, I'll need to go in a little bit more in depth. I'll start with Mill Pond. Anybody who's driven by has seen an excellent job of, basically putting together that vision that everybody had in creating a nice waterfront park that also serves as the gateway to town. So, if you haven't had a chance to go by there, please do. Obviously, there's still a construction fence around there, but they've done a lot of the hydro seeding. They've done the approach. They've put a lot of the rough material down. And today, they're surface on the walking paths. They've installed the lights and the conduit. So we're really looking forward to seeing that open, which will probably be early to mid-July. So yes.
Question on that, is that parking lot going to be paved?
No, the parking lot is going to be stabilized aggregate. Oh no, it's crusher run. So it's an ADA approved material.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have, obviously a seating area. If you're not familiar with the plans, the parking lot will be redone. There'll be a timber fence around the parking lot, and we're actually going to be replacing the chain link with timber as well, something that will match the bridge and will eventually match the boardwalk platform / dock over by Ocean House. So any more questions about that before I move on to downtown?
Nope, sounds good.
Okay. All right, let's get to the biggie, the downtown project. So last time we've talked, the bids came in significantly higher than what we had expected and what had been estimated. So we've been doing a lot of work in trying to put together how to close that gap. I think the first part is we will be structuring. We can do this, and we can start it this summer. We would essentially split up the subsurface work and the surface work. And through that process, we believe we could save a significant amount of money. I'm also looking at MassWorks for additional MassWorks funds, hopefully. But other than that, we're looking at different funding sources that we could utilize. But by splitting that out, the contractor has agreed to hold the prices for the surface work for a year. And the hope is when it comes time to do the surface work, we can see where prices are at that point. If it makes sense to go back to out to bid, we could do that and maybe achieve some more savings. Otherwise, we would just proceed with the same contractor. So that's, I assume this is an important project for the community. Well, I know it's an important project for the community. I think it's an important project for the board. And I can't think of a better time to do subsurface work than right now. So any thoughts or questions related to that?
No, I think it's a great idea, Michael, especially where there's less traffic on the road right now because everybody's working out, working from their home and not traveling back and forth. It makes a lot of sense to do that.
Okay. All right. If we have no more discussion about that, I'll move to the public safety building. And Joe or Steve, I don't know if you want to expound on this, but I think since our last meeting, we've made the decision on a HVAC system, and we made the decision to go geothermal with additional roof insulation, and then also building the structure so that it could support solar panels in the future. And we worked on this problem for a month and a half, pushed our timeline out a bit. I can't say enough about our engineers, HKT, and the work that they did. We just kept on asking them to do more and more analysis, and they just kept on taking it on and taking it on. So we have solved that problem, and that led to us to our first, I'll call it our first real estimate, which is a schematic design estimate, which with all of those sustainability features involved and with contingencies involved and soft costs, it comes out to about 32.5 million. So if you looked at a spreadsheet, you would actually see it to be around 35 million. But what that number, that 35 number would include is the 3.5 million that we've already appropriated for the engineering and design. So I don't know, like I said, I don't know if Joe or Steve wants to elaborate a little bit on that, but.
No, I think Michael, you hit it right on the head that we're within the budget that we were looking at. We also were able to keep the sustainability and the green initiative intact. The town voted to be a green community and sustainability, and as a result of going geothermal, there wasn't much pushback. There wasn't any pushback at all. If anything, they approved it. They were very grateful that we went that route. So and there wasn't a heck of a lot much more than the VFR that we were looking at on the HVA system. So again, it was close to $700,000 difference to do that. But we would be the first public safety building to be geothermal in this area. So hopefully we can try to get some federal grant monies as well and do other things that may help ease some of this financial issues within the community. So we're looking at that too. And we're also preparing to set up forums, public forums for discussions and do the presentations with the residents, because it's been quite some time since we've been able to do that.
Yeah, I think it was, it's certainly an interesting process. It's the largest system within the building. And I think there was a lot of, for me, a steep learning curve. I think at the end of the process, I think we certainly came to the right conclusion. It took a number of back and forths, but I think certainly demonstrates our commitment to the net zero philosophy and the commitment that the town has made. And hopefully this is that between the public safety building and the school, we've made a major commitment in that towards that direction. So and we're really, Joe, thinking about it, at our stage of the game, we're planning for the young people now, and that is a priority of young people, our students and our young families as well. So I think it's reflective of that as also. So.
And the payback will be a little bit less as well when we have to do it. So yep, I was grateful and I was thankful, and I'll be very honest with you. Geothermal was not in my idea in any way, shape, or form when we first started this.
For you.
Yeah, but I have to tell you, Rob, the more and more information that was provided, the more I said, yeah, I wish we could afford this. And then when the prices came in, well, we realized we could. So
that's great news. You guys would be congratulated for your work on that and your able to get that through. That's a great example.
The consultants did a
awesome.
pretty good job, and but it is a challenging site. So there were conditions there that are very different than the conditions that exist where the school would be built. But it's I guess where there's a will, there's a way. So
got it. So thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so moving on to the Warren District and Valentine Estate. So the two properties that we're engaged in with the Warren District, being the Warren Milking Barn and Hall House, I will say that David and Jen have been working nonstop with Framingham State and the purchasers of the Hall House, 433 Chestnut Street, to finalize and consummate that deal. And Jen, do you think that will happen soon? I think the last series of emails, and at least the last conversation I was involved in, it seemed like it was on its path to being completed soon.
Yes. So, and I hope we'll be able to execute the MOU, because then once we have that, we can move forward. But yes, I do.
Awesome. And so hopefully we will see movement on that. Again, they will be removing the house structure. They are keeping the basement, which is going to be the historic that really is the historic element. And they will be building a replica of the home. And we have talked with the Ashland Historical Society, who have reviewed the plans, made some comments, made some suggestions for changes, which the owners, the new owners, have agreed to. So looking forward to that project. The Warren Barn. One time we have talked, the budget for that was getting up to around $922,000, I think $950. Pretty expensive, a lot more expensive than what we had anticipated. We have gone back. We're doing some work on that, maybe scaling down what we are expecting, and maybe just looking at a shell of a structure for now and getting that erected. But we're continuing to work with our architects and engineers on that. So hopefully both of those projects, my goal is for both of those projects to, well, Mr. Foster's assignment ends in March, so by March of next year.
Okay, any comments on the Warren District and Valentine Estate? No, okay. Nope, hearing none. I think we're moving on then to Town Manager report.
Okay, so unfortunately, I don't know, this is certainly my typo. 2020 town election voting process and criteria. I think we just meant to say voting process. And Jen, I can let you discuss that a little bit, just a brief update on what we're working on.
Sure. So Cindy and Tara in our clerk's office have been working really hard to sort of solidify plans for what election day will look like. We are continuing to sort of promote early voting and absentee voting. I think as of today, we have had 261 people request a ballot. And so, that's certainly a substantial number of people. It's obviously, so we're moving to get those ballots out. They would have to be returned to us on election day to the town clerk's office. And then for the actual day of voting, we will have socially distanced check-ins. So we'll only have one person at each desk. We're using all staff. Many of our poll workers are sort of in that higher risk group, and just given where we are in the process of, in the phases, we felt more comfortable using our staff who we know that they've been through training to come back to town hall or to their offices. We're also purchasing portable plexiglass to sort of have a physical barrier between anybody who's checking in and the person checking in or checking out. So we are going to make sure that each of the ballot boxes will be, the polling stations where you're actually voting are socially distanced. We'll be asking people to come in with masks. We will also have masks available. If you don't have one, we certainly could provide one to you. And so you'll be entering in one way and then exiting. And so again, trying to really streamline the process so people who want to come and vote have that opportunity, but that we're keeping it as safe as possible in the environment that we're currently in.
Okay.
Is there oh, sorry.
Go ahead, question?
I was just going to ask, is there a drop dead date where people can, the latest that people can request a mail-in ballot?
I have to look. Michael, do you know offhand? I have to look.
Last day to register is
The 12th.
The
12th.
yes, but
The
I
last
don't.
day to request one.
Yeah,
Then you have to get them in by election day, but
I don't have that. I don't have that date right.
I can
off.
get it for you though. I probably can get it for you before we.
yeah, I think that's a good point. I was going to ask that myself because I think the more we remind people that if you're going to do it by X date, the better.
You're right.
Sooner rather than later.
yeah, and it's 3 weeks away. Election day is 3 weeks away, so
Right.
that is flying.
I keep meaning to request mine, but I still haven't gotten to it. So.
All right, Yolanda.
Question about pens. I was on an MMA policy committee meeting and we were discussing how people are handling elections and what they're doing with pens and things like that. So the couple of options was to get a lot of extra pens because you don't want people sharing pens, or having wipes available that the pens can be cleaned. Do we know which approach we're taking?
I believe we're going to have a lot of wipes available, but I know we had some conversation about whether we would have, you sort of do a hybrid where we'd have basically like, you'd have a dirty pen box and a clean.
Right.
So you could rotate them out. But I will confirm that with Tara as well. I know that was one of the things they were talking through as like the fine details.
I know the other thing that has been done or talked about was that people could bring their own pens, but it has to be the right kind of pen and the right color.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably asking a lot. I think I like the idea of having a box of clean pens and then a box of dirty pens that can then kind of be recirculated after they've been cleaned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for any comments on this agenda item? If not, fiscal year 21 budget, Michael?
Yes. So just want to let you know that, nothing's really changed since when we last talked about the budget and actually since you last approved it. I will say that we'll be anticipating doing a big borrowing for some of the projects that have previously been authorized. So we do have a ratings call with Standard & Poor's tomorrow. And I think you all know by now how important those are, how important that rating is, and it speaks to our financial condition and our management of the town's finances. So I know what I want coming out of that. So hopefully I'll have good news to report at the next meeting. Really just that. Any questions?
Nope. Good luck.
Thank you.
Bring home the bacon, as they say.
We'll try. We'll try. And then, so COVID reopening. This was the first week that we opened town hall by appointment only, and so we warned everybody there's going to be hiccups. We started experiencing some hiccups from day one, but it's been great to see how Joe and the team have responded, and have now we have a doorbell system to town hall. We now have plexiglass. I think it's still being deployed in other places, so at the counters, and it's just going to get, the process is going to get better and better as we find more and more of these things that we need to fix, or loopholes. Let's put it that way. So. So that's all I have about that. If you have any questions, if not, I have one more thing.
No, we're good.
Okay. So I just wanted to address some of the recent events and some of the things and some of the unrest that is happening in America due to obviously the tragic death of George Floyd, but I think many of us are starting to become aware, certainly not fully aware, but become aware of our responsibility as to dismantling systemic racism. The chief and I put out a statement over the weekend. We thought it was important to get out to people our feelings, the things that we could agree on at that time. I thought that was important. Since that time, I've been getting a lot of requests from people to say more and talk more. And I believe even in my statement that I reference the fact that we'll be doing a conversation later this week or continuing the conversation. I will have to say, since that time, I have reached out to several community members. I've tried to read, I've tried to learn a lot. And the more that I have learned, I really feel it's more important for me to listen than it is to speak. And I would actually caution all of us as leaders to find that balance because, there's an expectation that we take a position on things and we move things forward. And that's completely true. But what I found with leadership is sometimes it's best to listen. My grandfather would always say, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So that's really all I want to say about that right now. I will tell you that this seems different. This feels different. I feel like we are in a moment, and I do expect some real change to come out of this.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments, Michael, and particularly the concept of listening. And none of us know what it's like to be a Black in America. And Rob mentioned earlier the stain in America, the legacy, the systemic legacy, historical legacy of racism, and what can we do? And you're right, we can listen, and we can become more aware and sensitive to that legacy and how we respond to it as elected officials, as parents, as teachers, as students. How do we teach your children well? That's our responsibility. And it's but I do appreciate the communication that you put out. I appreciate the chief for being part of that and joining a multitude of police chiefs around the country that have condemned the events in Minneapolis. And I think he demonstrates a commitment to community policing that I find admirable. But at the same time, we need to understand as a community, what that means and how we can participate and how we can help in that process as well. So I appreciate those thoughts. Thank you. All right. So before we move on to board reports, I just wanted to ask a question from our scholarship subcommittee. And I don't recall us getting a report back on scholarships. So I'm assuming that's coming up soon. So I'll turn that over to Yolanda and Joe.
Yolanda, go ahead, because I know you made that little video. We did come up with 2 candidates that we thought were very fitting, and I'll let Yolanda speak on that behalf.
Yep.
Sure. So we had our subcommittee meeting last week, and we got it into the schools before they needed it. There was a lot of good candidates this year. One of the things we do is we look at their essays and their involvement in the community. We also look at if they've received other scholarships, because we really feel that we want to sort of share the wealth. So our 2 selections were Lauren Burke and Armand Bazarian. So that's who we announced, and that was I believe it's being announced this Sunday with the graduation video that they are putting out.
Oh, very nice. Great. So good work. Thank you. Thank you
You're
for that.
Welcome.
Yeah.
That pleasure. An honor to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. Michael, so question I have is, when I was talking to the chief earlier, he was telling me about a parade of vehicles, I believe on Saturday.
The 7th.
And they're going.
Sunday.
It's on Sunday? Okay.
It's on graduation day.
It's on, okay, and it's a route that's going to go through town and connect all the schools. Is that the plan?
Correct.
I believe all schools except I think Mendez might be omitted from the plan. But we have posted that on like the town's Facebook page. I'm not sure if we have it on the website. I know the schools, I think the schools do.
Okay, good. So I would encourage people to it's supposed to be a nice day on Sunday to stand out there and commemorate the class of 2020.
Yeah, I saw some video from the Hopkinton one, and they had their streets pretty much lined with people. So I would encourage people to do the same. And let's celebrate these seniors and help them celebrate something that's a little bit different than what the norm is.
Yeah, absolutely. So
And
good.
keeping social distancing in mind.
Yes. Wearing masks.
And wearing a mask.
All right, so now I will open it up to citizen participation. I think I'm going to go backwards in the alphabetical order. So Rob, you're up first.
You mean board reports?
You mean board reports.
reports. What did I say?
Citizens participation.
Mark it all excited.
It's all the
Very
same.
similar. Yeah, so just two quick items. One is, and I think, so Dr. Stanton finished and released the report last week. Did we, Steve, did we send it to the other board members, or I apologize if you didn't get it. I don't think she changed it much, but we should really send it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know she posted it on her website.
Yeah, we should. Okay, we should make sure
So we
everybody's
should
got
do
it.
it. And Rob, if you have it handy, you want to send it out to the board?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. And it didn't change. I don't think she changed much. There was some minor changes, right, Michael? That was my impression.
Very minor changes. The
Yeah.
substance of the report is
Right.
Solid.
Yeah. So I'll make sure I'll send that out to everybody. And, the other thing I was going to suggest that maybe we deputize Michael to send it to the facility siting people. And I don't know, either that or we can wait to our meeting when we discuss it in detail about what to do with it. But I'd say the sooner we get it into circulation, the better. Do we know anything about the facility siting board and what they're doing at this point, or?
Well, I did get an update from Attorney Winter, and so the siting board is still moving, not just specifically on our case, but the things that are on their docket, they are still working through them, but albeit at a much slower pace with COVID-19. And I will, I'm going to go out and guess that I'm anticipating that EFSB is going to wait until they see some of these other, legal challenges are settled before they make a decision.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, good. I just think we should send this report to them as soon as we're comfortable doing it, just in case. I mean, it can't hurt. So, give them an excuse to rule in our favor or put it off or something. Anyway. So, so I apologize that we didn't send it out to the rest of the board members, but we'll do that. The only other thing I wanted to, as part of the Memorial Day informal, which we didn't have a formal thing, I ended up spending a lot of time at the cemetery. It was interesting. I walked around. I don't know if people are aware of this. There's a number of graves of people who served in the Civil War. So I think this is somehow, somewhat related to the current events. There's a special marker, the GAR marker, which stands for Grand Army of the Republic, which is a very poetic name, when you think about it. And this is an example of residents of Ashland who were, fought to end slavery in 1860. Ashland was on the right side of history. And, and I'm sure we're going to continue to be on the right side of history. So just that observation.
Yeah,
Thank
very
you.
good. Thank you. Thanks for that, Rob. Joe, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question for Michael, and then I'll briefly comment on. the social issues that are at hand. Kind of curious as to the standing of the MWRA tie-in and what, where we stand and what the process. I know. So we're actually. So where are we? Have we started the process? Are we putting?
Oh, so I'm sorry. I thought I had updated the board before on this. I mean, it's practically almost completed.
Okay.
The physical piece. I mean, the vault is in, the pump, the pump's in, the piping's in. There's a couple of things that they need to do which have been delayed due to COVID-19. But that is expected to end we're supposed to happen, get it done by November of this year. There is one piece, bureaucratically, I will say, that still needs to happen, and that's, formal acceptance of us into the system by the MWRA. But a lot of the grunt work about that leads up to that has been done. I think the hard work, let's put it that way, going to the Mass Water Resources Commission, getting the legislation in place, et cetera. So I am hoping that, again, November will be the date.
Thank you. Appreciate it. What I'm about to say comes from my heart. I talked to people about this, and I'm going to get emotional, and I apologize. But seeing what's happening in this country right now wasn't something that started a week ago because of the actions of individuals who should not have been wearing the uniform to begin with. This country was based on the fact that all people are created equal. And I say all people, but the Constitution says that all men are created equal. And I think there needs to be a time for a constitutional amendment to start changing some wording around. Because inequality, racism, bigotry, unfortunately, is sewn into the fabric of our own country. It has been, and until we do something to make that change, it'll continue to be that way. From those who left religious persecutions from England to come to this country, let's face it, the founding fathers of our country did not have the presence of conscience to realize that all men are not created equal. It's one of the biggest misnomers that is written in our Constitution today. It should be noted that many of the founding fathers owned slaves themselves, and to maintain their properties and to work their fields, including our first president, President George Washington. The founding fathers that drafted this Constitution and the 12 amendments, there were 12 original amendments. They dropped 2, and those became 10 amendments, which we now know as the Bill of Rights. They should look at themselves in their faces and talk about the hypocrisy of this whole thing that's happened. Equality for all should be the wording that should be in our Constitution. For me, that would be the most prolific action we could take right now, because that's a start. That's a change. It's a beginning of a change. I grew up in a time, late 60s, early 70s, when the people were protesting. They were protesting against the government. They were protesting against the war that should have never been. They were also protesting the rights of individuals who had no rights, who were still feeling the effects of racism. Martin Luther King Jr. and his associates marched peacefully in Washington, D.C. And he said he had a dream. Well, this definitely was not his dream. I hold no political background. I'm an independent. I vote for the person who I think is going to do the right job for all of us. I'm concerned about the fact that there are too many people out there whose voices are lost in the wind, and it's a hurricane wind. and their voices aren't being heard. Actions of a few are making it so that people can hear their voices. But unfortunately, there was a loss of life for that to happen. Now, there were circumstances around this that we won't get into. I'm sure that Mr. Floyd was not deserving of his demise in any way, shape, or form. But there were good officers out there that are being painted with the same brush of bigotry that those 4 officers from Minnesota created. And that's really not fair. No different than those good religious people who are priests were painted with the same brush of those priests who were pedophiles. It's the nature of the beast. There's a lot of good that's going on out there, both men and women in law enforcement, and those on the other side. I told Stephen a little while ago about the fact that when I grew up in Ashland, it was a WASP community. I have no idea what it's like to be a Black person, but I do know what it's like to be an Italian in a WASP community, being called different names, not having the ability to do certain things back then. You may not believe that, but yeah, that happened in Ashland. But what I did see, and what the way I was taught by my family, and I use the word taught because when we're born, we're not born with a gene that says you hate, you have racism, or you're bigoted. You're taught those. You're taught those lessons. And that's something that needs to be changed. You're not going to get a hold of everybody. You're not going to change everybody's feelings because they're so entrenched in their own personal biases. I don't know what the solution is to this. Sitting down and talking, that's great. But it's not an action that's going to actually solve something down the road. From my observations from being a teen during the late 60s and early 70s to now, we're going through the same thing all over again. Rodney King, same thing, all over again. It's a mindset. It's a way. It's a mentality of those who think they're above the law. And folks, they are not in any way, shape, and form. And it's unfortunate because too many good men and women who wear that uniform are being chastised and being persecuted for those actions of 4 individuals who should never have worn the badge. My understanding in reading certain things that the individual who actually caused Mr. Floyd's death had 7 additional complaints against him for abusive behavior. I'm sorry, after 1 incident, he should have been out the door. That's a problem for hierarchy, and that's a problem for the management of that department. So they should all go. They should all leave. I'm heartbroken when I watch the news and I see what's happening today, or what happened last night, the night before. There was a business person in New York City just today protecting her property and get hit by a ladder and was knocked unconscious. What the hell is going on? I looked at my wife and I said, we're on our way out. And I'm kind of disheartened over this fact that what are we leaving our country or our world to the people like our children, our grandchildren? What are we leaving them? We're leaving them with a world of disarray. I mean, there's still a lot of good out there. Don't get me wrong. There's still a lot of good people who are working their asses off to get things done to help people see the light. But there are too many with other agendas that want to see this country fail. 266 years ago, we fought oppression. We're still fighting it. We're still fighting it. We haven't done anything to make it better. And it bothers me. It really and truly bothers me. And I just wish there was somebody that would stand up, that would take an office and take an oath and do what they say they're going to do instead of just rhetorical BS. Because right now our country is leadership. We have a leaderless country right now. And until such time somebody stands up and takes the bull by the horns, we're not going to achieve anything. There's still a lot of good people in office, but at the same token, they're also painted with the same brush of disdain. And it just, there's nothing I can say, there's nothing I can do other than try to lead by example, which I thought I had done, but I'm only one person. You all have done the same thing and are doing the same thing. You're raising your children, you're raising your family to be this way. I can tell you that my father and mother, one of the lessons that I learned from my mom and dad many, many years ago, when the first Black family came into town, they were chastised. They were ignored. My father and mother went over and welcomed them to the community and brought them dinner. We became good friends and we're still good friends today. It just hurts. It really hurts to see that nothing has changed. Maybe not enough to make a big difference. I come from a mixed marriage and within my family, married interracially. And I have to tell you something. I look at people the way I was raised. I look at people for what they do, not for what they look like. You treat me fair and equitable, I will treat you fair. I will respect you, you respect me. That's the way it should be, but it's not. It's not. They look at the color of their skin. They look at their religious aspirations or lack of, or their genders or the lack of gender. It took a while for everybody to understand, the gay lesbian liberation group, and they're still fighting it as well. Until we get everybody together, we're going to have more incidents of this down the road. Training, you can have all the training in the world. Ashland, I know for a fact, does have training. I was part of that training when I was a police officer here. Diversified training was part of our yearly training every year. And it should continue. And I hope it does continue. I feel bad for the Floyd family, and all I can say is that his 6-year-old daughter has more guts and more savvy than most people I know. When she was asked, "What is your daddy?" She says, "My daddy's going to change the world." And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Joe. That obviously very heartfelt, and I appreciate your thoughts and your passion. And I can't agree with you more.
Yeah, I apologize for getting emotional, guys, but this really hits home. It really hits home. Because the men and women out there that are doing the job to protect and serve are also getting mistreated as well. And unfairly.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Joe. Brandy, I think you're up next.
So I feel Joe's pain. I feel the pain that I think we're all seeing right now. I think that it's George Floyd's death, but it's not just George Floyd's death. It's all the incidents that have come before him, and we're at this point where we can't ignore systemic racism. And I acknowledge I'm a white woman, middle class, living in a suburb, and that makes me privileged. So I will never know what it feels like to be a person of color and know the pain that has brought them to this point. But for me, I can support these peaceful protests and Black Lives Matter as a way to bring about conversation and change and improve our community. I really think that that's where we're heading, and that's the part of it that uplifts me. And I agree with Michael that, you know, as leaders of this community, the best thing we can do is probably listen and ask some really tough questions, because I think we need to. I think we need to address systemic racism. I think that you know, if we listen and we ask the questions, we can do better. And you know, that's my promise. So that is what that's what I hope to do for my family, for my son, and the legacy that I know that we can kind of do together. So that's kind of my position on the current state of affairs. You know, and other, shifting gears a little bit, just to break it up a little bit. I just wanted to acknowledge that June is Pride Month, and I was happy to see the Pride flag flying at Town Hall. So, because I think that's it's a huge symbol of inclusion for our community and to all those that celebrate Pride Month. So wanted to thank Michael, Jen, DPW, the folks that put that up this week. So thank you for that. I also wanted to talk a little bit about Superintendent Adams is hosting this week. He hosted last night, today, and tomorrow 3 parent sessions, community forums. Parents have a lot of questions about the reopening of school in September and what that might look like. I attended the forum last night. It was lots of really good questions from parents. Mr. Adams is expecting the Commissioner of Education to come down with some actual real guidelines around June 15th. And he's pretty optimistic that it's probably going to be about 85 to 90% across the board as far as what communities look like for reopening. So initially, Mr. Adams was a little concerned because he thought the guidance might be pretty vague and that it might be up to communities to come up with their own reopening plan, more or less, which might pit communities with more resources against others. But we think that he's optimistic that the guidance that's going to come down from the state and from the commissioners is going to be pretty substantial, which is good. And then the only other thing that I wanted to just pass along my condolences to the Limburner Jensen family. Andy Limburner was passed away suddenly this last week. Andy leaves a wife and 3 children who are classmates of my son. And Andy was very involved in coaching and youth sports. He served on the board of AYBS. And so I just wanted to pass along my heartfelt condolences to the family, and especially during this time. So, so that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy, for your thoughts as well. And I just want to make one quick comment because I obviously the focus right now is we all seem to be focused on police departments and police responses and police trainings and so on. But I think we should also have a better understanding. I certainly don't know how these issues are addressed in our schools, and what are the programs that address the historic and systemic issues that are driving these events. So I think it'd be something that maybe we can have some kind of presentation, maybe from Mr. Adams at some point as well. So thank you for your thoughts, Brandy. And Yolanda, you're up.
Thank you, Steve. I'm going to do some real board updates, and then I have some thoughts as well. So tomorrow morning is the Metro West Regional Collaborative monthly meeting. It's Zoom. If you're interested, let me know. I can make sure we send you the link. Last week, I attended the virtual MAPC annual meeting.